The scene begins at dusk. In a magnificent palace, a man holds a paper in his hand and says, "Excellent." The surrounding knights bow their heads as he speaks. In the surrender document of the Sudet Duchy, the emperor, seated on his throne, looks pleased. "Our territory has expanded to the Hallex mines. This is a dream that even my father couldn't achieve." He looks at a dignified man and says, "You've worked hard, Count." The Count smirks. It's quite amusing to think about what reward to give you. The Count suddenly pauses. "Your heir isn't past marriageable age, is he?" "Married already. The royal family should also take responsibility." "How old are you this year?" "Successor." The Count hesitates, glancing away. "About that." He looks at the man with a handsome but emotionless face beside him, who replies, "Eric is 24 this year, Your Majesty." The Emperor's violet eyes widen in excitement. "The perfect age. Very well." He gives a wicked smile, feigning generosity. "I shall give you my sister, the one whose existence no one knows." The Count is stunned by his words. He is extremely doubtful. Isn't she dead? No longer in this world. Sweat drips down the Count's face. He bows his head, thinking, why would His Majesty offer such a person? The Emperor orders a servant, "Open the door behind me." This must be the first time everyone has seen the princess. The door opens, revealing the silhouette of a girl with blonde hair and tattered clothes. Even the soldiers watch as the princess of the Explorer Kingdom, her bare feet covered in wounds, steps out. The Emperor says in a false voice, "My beloved younger sister, whom I cherish more than anyone." Misa, she stands there, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Eric's eyes widen in surprise. His gaze meets Misa's dull blue eyes. The Emperor laughs and says, "The princess is very shy. Misa, come here." Misa cannot speak, only managing a few choke sounds. Her thin legs stumble. Misa falls beside the Emperor. Her thin, frail body lies sprawled on the ground. The Emperor, showing no pity, laughs mockingly. The princess is a little unwell, so please understand. He coldly calls out, "Misa, get up." The Count hastily speaks, "It is an honor for my family to welcome the noble princess." He thinks to himself, doubtfully, is that really the princess? Then Eric unexpectedly speaks up, "Your Majesty." He looks directly at her with determined eyes. "I swear I will not let anyone insult the king or the princess." The Emperor grins and waves his hand. "That's right. The princess will become your wife. So come closer and take a better look." Eric straightens his back and walks towards her, then kneels. The sunlight catches Misa's hair, making it shimmer. The two look at each other in silence. Eric takes her hand and lifts it. He bows his head. "It is an honor to welcome you, princess." Before his lips can reach her hand, Misa abruptly pulls it away. Eric looks at her in surprise, while fear is evident in Misa's eyes. The Emperor watches them, as if enjoying a play. He waves his hand. "Misa, you shouldn't do that to your future husband. Come here." Hearing his call, Misa obediently runs to him. She knelt at his feet. The Emperor stroked her head like a pet and said, "Princess, you've been disrespectful. You must apologize, Misa." Misa opened her vacant eyes and barked twice. Eric watched her silently. The scene changed to a carriage rattling along the road as the sunset faded. The Count and his wife sat in silence in the carriage. The atmosphere was stifling. The Count frowned, his eyes narrowing. It was a long war. In that war, Granny certainly contributed greatly to the victory. These matters displeased the king. That's why he devised this marriage. A shrill scream echoed from within the castle. "The price of the loyalty we have offered until now." The Count slammed his hand on the table. "A foolish princess." But Eric's face remained calm as he thought, "I cannot refuse the king's command." He looked down. Marriage is unavoidable. Eric thought as he cut a small piece of steak. Even if it's an unwanted marriage. He slowly brought the steak to his mouth. As the heir of Clatany, I will only do what I must. And Barrick, sitting beside him, hesitantly asked, "Then what about the engagement with the Crispin family?" Count Clatany angrily tightened his grip on his wine glass. "Do you even need to ask? Of course it's off." A mad tyrant with no foresight. Looking at his wife leisurely admiring a painting, he shouted angrily, "Aren't you angry, Telesa?" His wife silently uncorked a bottle of wine and poured it into a glass. Telesa looked at her reflection in the wine glass. "What is it?" Two maids sitting before her said, "The princess cannot use the bedroom alone." Hearing the request, the countess immediately replied, "As you can see, there's a passageway connecting the bedrooms." The two maids questioned her without reservation. "Countess Clatany, do you not recognize the princess's condition?" The two maids put on impudent expressions. "Countess, if the princess collapses in the night, it will become a big problem. If that happens, the king will be furious." Indeed, Countess Telesa wearily rubbed her temples. I have arranged for additional staff. The two maids cried out, "Oh dear. Why hire servants?" They appeared indignant. Does the Countess intend to entrust the princess's body to hired help? Truly, Countess, the king will be furious. Countess Telesa frowned and swirled the wine in her glass, meaning her voice turned cold. You must personally watch over the princess. How dare you speak like that to the heir of Clatny? She lifted the glass and drained it in one gulp. Eric remained silent. It was a night filled with murderous intent and suffering, but Eric paid little attention. But finally, the day arrived. A magnificent carriage appeared. News of a marriage between the noble princess and the valiant knight, Eric, who returned victorious from war. The populace, weary from the long war, finally smiled with happiness. Eric sat in the carriage, his face filled with sadness, thinking their excitement is natural. To those who know nothing, it's like a fairy tale. Inside the palace, the nobles whispered amongst themselves. I can't believe the princess appeared like that. I wonder how she grew up looking like that. A noblewoman was speaking, according to the rumors. She suddenly stopped. Watching Count Clatny approach, they whispered amongst themselves. The Count has arrived. A knight hesitantly called out, "Your Excellency." He turned around. "What is it?" The knight leaned in and whispered in his ear, "His Majesty is indisposed and will not be attending the wedding." The Count raised an eyebrow. What? He listened intently to the knight. Fortunately, the princess has arrived safely. Count Clatny's hand clenched. He intends to make a mockery of this. Is that so? He clicked his tongue and walked away. Inside, everyone was already seated. The wedding ceremony was about to begin. We invite all guests to take their seats. The priest announced, "We invite the groom to the altar." Eric, dressed in an exquisitely tailored white suit, his handsome face and dark hair shining, stepped forward. The wooden doors slowly opened, accompanied by the priest's voice. "We invite the bride to enter." Misa, her eyes vacant, entered in a white dress, flanked by two maids. Seeing the princess's lifeless demeanor, the nobles murmured amongst themselves. "Oh my goodness, is she unwell? She looks dazed. She can't even walk properly." But Eric remained silent, waiting at the altar. The priest looked at the groom's handsome face, Eric Clatny, then at the bride's vacant expression. Misa squalor. His voice echoed through the church. "Before God, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Eric then lifted Misa's delicate face. The kiss of vows. He placed a kiss on her lips. Eric slowly closed his eyes. Night fell. Misa's two maids, unaware of proper etiquette, followed behind. Eric muttered, "The wedding night. We must not harm the princess. We will come in the morning to retrieve the proof of consummation." He replied coldly, "I know." The door opened. Inside, Misa was tied to the bed. Moonlight illuminated her body, visible beneath the thin gown. Eric stared dumbfounded. He slowly walked towards her, but in Misa's blue eyes, there was no reaction. He removed his robe. He softly spoke, "Princess." The room remained silent. Eric looked at the unresponsive Misa with suspicion. His eyes fell on two vials on the bed. Drugs, a sedative, enough to tranquilize a horse. His eyes narrowed. They used a sedative on someone who's nearly starved to death. Eric looked at Misa's lifeless face on the bed. I wouldn't even do this to an enemy prisoner of war who would do such a despicable thing without hesitation. He thought this is impossible, unless it was the king's order. He gritted his teeth. Unbelievable. He gently lifted her small, bound feet. "You must be cold. I'll untie you quickly. Your body temperature is dropping drastically." His large hand caressed the red marks on Misa's ankles. "Are you all right?" he asked, then answered himself, "Of course not." Looking at her delicate hands, he felt a pang of guilt. "Your wrists are still tied. It must be painful." His voice was soft. He untied the ropes. "I'll untie your wrists too." He sat on the floor, silently looking at Misa's red wrists. Eric took her small hand and examined it. "Your fingertips are completely dark red. They must have been tied for a long time. This could be serious." Misa sat dazed on the bed. Eric stood, seeing no other option. He placed his hand on the headboard. Although Misa couldn't respond, he announced, "I'll be joining you in bed for a moment. Don't be startled." Misa's blue eyes stared blankly ahead. Silence fell. He lay down on the bed and softly began, "My name is Eric. I'm the son of the Grady family. I'm 24 years old and I have no brothers. I had a sister, but she died in an accident when she was young." He held Misa in his arms, his voice a low murmur. "During that time, I lived on the border due to the war with the Sidus Duchy. Today, Princess, you and I were married." He fell silent. Despite his words, looking at her unresponsive face, he wondered how much she understood. Still, he had no choice but to explain the situation. He took her hand, stroking her pale fingers. "Winters on the border are harsh, and it's easy to get frostbite." Eric looked at her. "The most important thing is to get the blood circulating throughout your body." Eric's eyes lit up. Misa had fallen asleep in his arms. Eric sat up. Seeing her color return, he figured she was improving. She should be better after she wakes up. He slowly got out of bed. "Now, I need to create evidence of our wedding night." He He looked around. What would be suitable? His gaze landed on 2 wine glasses on the table. The next morning, a disembodied voice echoed through the mansion. Are you awake yet? Eric emerged, carrying a sheet stained with a red liquid. This is proof of the wedding night. A maid took the sheet. I'll give this to the priest. The woman beside her, noticing the stain, seemed to understand. Without asking, she said, I'll go and prepare the princess. Eric, passing by, added, I'm going to my room. Just as the woman reached for the doorknob, Eric stopped her. Wait, he said casually. The princess is still asleep. It's best to wait a while. The maid released the handle. Very well. The two turned and left without waiting for further instructions. Please rest well, sir. Eric quietly closed the door. Suddenly, a munching sound came from behind him. He glanced back. Misa was sitting on the floor, chewing on his shirt. Eric rushed over. Princess, you can't eat that. Misa seemed not to hear, continuing to chew. He looked around the room. You must be hungry. Wait a moment. Misa, still unaware, continued to gnaw on the shirt. Princess, Eric called, holding out a croissant. How about this? Misa looked up, discarding the shirt. She made a small sound and reached for the pastry. Eric watched intently as Misa devoured the croissant. He smiled faintly. Looking at Misa sitting on the floor, he said, I'm glad you like it. At the Count's mansion, a voice announced, Young Master Eric has returned. Eric placed a hand on his chest. Father, I brought the princess. Beside him, Misa was being firmly held by 2 maids. Countess Clatney and another woman stood at the entrance, their expressions cold. Is that so? Countess Clatney frowned. So it's come to this. He turned around. You must be tired, so please rest. Just as he finished speaking, there was a scream. The princess. Outside, Eric was struggling to hold Misa back as she climbed a statue. The bear, along with 2 of Grady's servants, panicked. It's dangerous. Please come down. Princess, you can't climb up there. Eric carried her down. The Count turned away in disgust. Countess Clatney simply watched silently. Holding Misa, who was looking around curiously, Eric silently looked at his parents. One of Misa's maids approached. Please give the princess to me. You must be tired. You should rest. Eric immediately refused. It's all right, he said to the maid. You 2 must be tired from your journey. Please unpack and rest. The maid looked up and replied, Yes, sir. They giggled and turned away. We'll excuse ourselves. Eric called out to the butler. The butler immediately replied, Yes, young master. The princess has become a member of our family. Starting today, Eric instructed. Since she is not well, please be attentive in attending to her. The butler bowed in acknowledgement. I will be mindful, so you needn't worry. Telesa watched them walk away, her arms crossed and her brow furrowed. The scene changed to a meal. The atmosphere among the 4 was incredibly stifling. Glancing at the 2 maids hovering nearby, Eric said, I will take care of my wife's meal, so please return and rest. The maid with the mole at the corner of her mouth smiled. It's no trouble. The princess is particularly fussy when it comes to eating. His gray eyes narrowed. Immediately after, he asked, Are there any dishes my wife particularly likes or dislikes? She replied, No, sir. She eats everything. He offered a small piece of meat to Misa. Would you like to try this? Misa obediently chewed the meat in her mouth. Eric silently watched as Misa suddenly stopped chewing. She spat the meat directly into his face. Enraged, Misa grabbed a plate and tried to throw it. Eric stood up and stopped her. My lady, please calm down. The Count sat in his seat, his hands clenched. Eric held her hands firmly. He asked, Is the food not to your liking? The 2 maids, instead of intervening, covered their mouths and laughed. Eric turned back and said coldly, It seems my wife is unclean and needs a bath. The 2 maids, thus commanded, looked annoyed. Fine. Misa was taken away. Eric slowly sat back down. The Count gritted his teeth and turned to him. He communicated through signs. Is it necessary to keep her alive? A murderous aura emanated from him. Telesa smirked. She also replied using signs if the princess is killed. She placed a hand on her chest. All of us. Then she held up 2 thumbs, indicating they would all die. Eric simply lowered his head in silence. The Escobar Kingdom. In the Escobar Kingdom, there are 3 great families known as the 3 Pillars. The Salachi family, established within the kingdom. The Crispin family, protecting the security within the kingdom. The Grady family, protecting the security outside the kingdom. All 3 families have a great influence on the military strength and security of the kingdom. The previous king had 3 royal consorts, each from one of these families. The first consort, the daughter of Duke Salazar, gave birth to a prince. Who was the tyrant? Squall 2. He failed to fulfill his duties as a king and implemented an absolute monarchy. Under the pretext of restoring royal authority, he personally annihilated the Salazar clan. But the king wasn't satisfied. He oppressed the 2 remaining families. years. Unable to endure the king's oppression, the two families decided to join forces. A marriage alliance for the next generation was formed, and they planned an uprising as soon as the war ended. But the plan didn't go as expected. An undeniable war achievement was attributed to the Grady family. The trust and love of the kingdom's people, who were weary of the tyrannical monarchy, gradually faded. The king had no reason to leave things as they were. The count's hand tightened until it trembled. His mind wasn't clear. He gritted his teeth. He didn't even know how to behave properly. Lady Telesa calmly instructed the butler, "Give this to those people outside." The butler bowed. "Yes, my lady. I understand." She calmly raised her glass and said, "I heard that the princess was originally lucid, but witnessing the kingdom's people slowly wither away caused her current state." The countess turned away and said loudly, "Who cares about empathy?" The count changed the subject. "This morning, some vassals suggested that Emmerich should take your place." He continued, "If you want to inherit the family, you must marry Marquis Crispin's daughter. At this rate, the successor will soon be changed. Do you understand what that means?" The count pressed on, "Your position has become unstable because of that madwoman." Eric remained silent. Previously, a vassal had asked the count, "Is Grand Duke Hagen still hesitant? He's so slow. He's indecisive." He gritted his teeth. When the two sides are separated, it's as if their minds are also split in two. The king's cousin, Grand Duke Hagen, aside from the princess, he's the only surviving royal. He's a crucial figure for legitimizing the rebellion. He paused. One day, he became disabled due to an accident and couldn't see the outside world. He's living a life of almost complete seclusion. The count slammed his fist on the table and stood up abruptly. "Damn it, nothing is going as planned." He stormed off, muttering, "Damn it." Eric listened silently as the count spoke and walked away. Unbelievable. He can't even control himself. Lady Telesa poured wine into her glass. Calmly, she asked Eric, "What do you think? I mean, uniting the two families through marriage." He replied, "From the beginning, uniting the two families through marriage wasn't feasible. Now, the king is watching. There's no reason to draw attention by holding a wedding. It's still unclear who will succeed the throne. It might take several years to persuade the nobles. How long can the Marquis's daughter remain unmarried?" Lady Telesa brought her hand to her mouth, pondering. "That's what I'm saying." Her eyes glanced sideways. Spending too long on the battlefield makes one's mind rigid regarding politics. In a situation even young people can grasp, he's only focused on harming the princess. Eric raised his glass. "We need to observe the situation first." He placed his glass on the table. In some ways, it's good not to be faulted by the maids. The countess lowered her head. "The princess," she said softly. "Don't develop feelings for the princess." Eric was immediately taken aback. She continued, "There's nothing as shallow as a man's affections. Because you're my son, I don't expect anything different. If it's just a fleeting infatuation, it's best not to develop feelings." From the beginning, when she suddenly fell silent, her voice slowly echoed, "I mean, don't confuse the poor princess." Night fell. Eric walked silently down the hallway. His face was grim. He thought, "Mother, do you think it would be better to get rid of the princess?" Images of the princess flashed through his mind. Eric lowered his head. As he walked, a voice suddenly called out, "Hurry up and get into bed. Don't hesitate." The voice, coming from Eric's room, belonged to two maids. "Didn't you hear me? Hurry up." Inside the room, the two maids stood beside the princess. "Goodness, what's wrong with her today? She can't seem to calm down. She must still have energy from eating so much." The plump maid asked, "Did you see the looks on their faces just now?" The maid with the mole on her lip replied, "Of course I did. It's unbelievable." Suddenly, Eric entered. It was already difficult for the two of them. They stammered, "Why, young master?" Eric didn't reply. He thought he had only overheard a few words at the door. Looking at Misa, he said, "Leave my wife to me now. I'll take care of her." Inwardly, he knew he could clearly see how the princess had been treated lately. The two maids' faces were worried as they bowed their heads when he spoke. "So, that's all for today." The maid with the mole on her lip frowned. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Well then, I'll see you tomorrow morning." They went out. Only Eric and the princess remained in the room. He bowed his head. The princess also sat silently on the bed. Looking at the princess, stroking her hair, he said, "You seem to be in good spirits today." He sat down beside her. "This is the mansion in the capital." "Yes." He spoke to her gently. "From now on, you'll have to go back and forth between here and Granny's territory. I hope you like it. I wonder if you've been uncomfortable up until now." Seeing Misa didn't reply, he thought, "When I came in just now, it seemed like our eyes met. It seems she's lost interest." His gaze swept over her tattered clothes. His eyebrows furrowed. "Doesn't the princess always have other clothes besides these?" "What's this?" He looked down. They looked like prison clothes. Misa suddenly turned to him. Eric was also stunned. His eyes widened. The princess suddenly looked up and made a spitting sound. She pursed her lips. She had spat. She had spat right in his face. Eric was taken aback. He wiped his wet face with his hand. You mustn't spit in people's faces. He placed his hand on her shoulder. Rest for now. I'll take care of the rest, and then go to sleep. He wondered to himself, what am I even thinking? He turned and walked away. If you need anything, just call me. Misa remained silent. Moonlight streamed into the room that night. Eric and Misa lay in bed, seemingly asleep. No, it seemed only Eric was asleep. Beside him, Misa was stiff. She lay silently next to him. The moonlight was bright. A flash of lightning startled Misa awake. Her blue eyes were filled with terror. The next morning, breakfast for the two of them was incredibly silent. Eric scooped a spoonful of soup. Did you have trouble sleeping last night? Misa remained silent. He brought the spoon closer to her. It's a strange bed, so you must still be feeling uneasy. As if wanting to say something, she made a few small sounds. Eric looked at her thoughtfully. Her complexion seemed worse than usual, strangely. Last night, before she went to sleep, she looked fine. He mused to himself. Even if she doesn't have an appetite, she needs to eat properly to regain her strength. She has to eat at least a little. Misa suddenly slammed her hand into the bowl of soup. Eric flinched as Misa scooped up a handful of soup. She brought her entire hand to her mouth and sucked on it. Eric simply watched her in silence. The princess had arrived at the mansion, and several days had passed in a flurry. The scene shifted to the training grounds. After Eric and the princess's wedding, the atmosphere in the mansion had changed somewhat. Eric, with a gentle expression and impressive physique, strode forward. Everyone murmured, "The commander is here," and the soldiers bowed in greeting. As he walked, it seemed everyone had something they wanted to say. A heavy atmosphere seemed to permeate the entire mansion. Noticing their gazes, Eric asked, "Why are you all standing around? Is today's training session over already?" The soldiers startled and snapped back to attention. "And no, sir. For some time now, Count Clatney had been avoiding family meals." Countess Clatney expressed her displeasure at the Count's inability to control his emotions. She, along with the vassals who followed the Grady family, wore puzzled expressions. However, no one dared to express their dissatisfaction directly to Eric. He acted as if nothing had happened. This was because Eric always remained composed and dignified. Returning to the mansion, he asked the butler, "Where is the young mistress?" The butler, walking beside him, replied, "After taking a walk this morning, she is currently in the maid's workroom." Wiping his sweat, Eric asked, "Is she there again today?" The door opened. Inside the workroom, the maids were gathered together. The girls were watching Misa sleep. "It looks like it's very comfortable up there. She's sleeping so soundly, she hasn't woken up yet. With so many clothes, it must be very soft. It's all right for her to lie there, isn't it? Even if they're freshly washed, those are still clothes we wear." They continued, "Anyway, look at that shimmering hair. How can it be so beautiful? I saw a cat like that once. It was pure white. Oh, it must have been adorable." A knock echoed. Eric entered, causing them to jump to their feet. "Young master." He stepped inside and asked, "Are those two maids out again?" One girl replied, "Yes, sir. So we've been taking good care of the young mistress. We also informed the butler that she was here alone." Eric walked past the maids. "Thank you for your hard work." Another girl said, "Since the floor is both cold and hard, we let her lie on our clothes." Eric walked over and picked Misa up. "You may return to your duties." He carried Misa in his arms and headed out. "Leave her to me." The two ascended the stairs, then walked silently along the corridor. Finally, they reached the door to her room. Eric carried Misa inside. She suddenly awoke in his arms, screaming and struggling. Her face contorted as she thrashed. He continued to carry her towards the bed. "Wait until I put you down on the bed. You might get hurt if you fall." Misa was gently placed on the bed. Immediately, like a feral cat, she backed away defensively. Eric watched her silently. He thought about the results of his observations of the princess over the past few days. The princess seemed to dislike him intensely. He watched Misa chewing on her hair, wondering what she was thinking. It seemed she only saw him as a means of transportation. Eric suddenly fell silent, a thought striking him like a loose thread. He reached out to pat her head, but Misa ducked away, hiding her face. Surprised, Eric gently untangled the thread from her hair. "I didn't mean to frighten you. I'll just get this thread out of your hair." The thread fell away. Eric looked at her, wondering if she had been startled. Misa looked up. Eric remembered a maid's words. "I've seen a cat like that before. Always looks so pristine." Eric's lips parted slightly. He covered his mouth, chuckling softly. Night fell. Misa lay in bed, sleeping soundly. But Eric remained at his desk, a pile of papers scattered across its surface. He picked up a sheet, his attention drawn to the name Malika DL. It was the name of the royal maidservants. He always entrusted the princess to the mansion's maids, and whenever he had free time, he would leave. It was clear something shady was going on. He held his head in his hands, sighing. He worried about the food supply for the people in his territory. He looked at the papers on his desk. There was so much to worry about. Then Eric picked up a letter. There was even more to worry about. He opened the letter. The words, "I will report to the young master," immediately caught his eye. Eric read intently. After the day the young master mentioned, the results of connecting everyone last night also confirmed the fact that they met at the house in the suburbs, along with that barmaid, the head of the Granny family. Eric fell into thought. When his father suddenly spoke about the marriage between Clatney and Crispine, he was the only one who had doubts about it. But in reality, in some ways, it was only natural. What his father proposed wasn't a bad thing for the vassals and knights, but why? He couldn't shake his suspicions. Since that day, he had been secretly observing his father, and his eyes widened in shock. There was a certain barmaid who frequented his father's place. It was the first time he had seen his father stray from the path, although it was a bit bitter. But on the battlefield, where life and death were a constant, this couldn't be considered a problem. He tried to investigate whether the woman had any ulterior motives, but there was nothing special. He tried to cover it up and pretend he was the only one who knew. But when the war ended, his father brought that woman here. He even told his right-hand man, Lord Giovanni, that he would take her as his second wife. He was completely devoted to her. Eric had no choice but to reveal the truth to his mother in a letter, along with the evidence. And the reply he received from the maid, Eden, was that his mother was annoyed to receive the letter. She herself said, "We're both old now. It doesn't matter if he's seeing someone else. On the contrary, it's much more comfortable not having to look at each other every night." That's what his mother had said. Eric gave a wry smile. It would be easier to spread the news if it were a noble. It was difficult because he couldn't contact the person behind it. Besides Lord Giovanni occasionally visiting the suburban house, there were no other visitors at all. He threw the letter down on the desk and sighed deeply. Eric wearily rested his head against the chair. There didn't seem to be any new information. He thought, actually, his mother's reaction wasn't surprising. Their relationship, from the very beginning, if he looked closely, was just a partnership to build up the family. Looking at it that way, her reaction, he suddenly looked down, hearing a noise. Misa was sitting up in bed. She rubbed her eyes. Seeing Misa walk towards him, he asked, "Are you awake?" Misa didn't answer. Watching her walk, he thoughtfully asked, "Did I wake you? Do you need anything?" Misa remained silent. He called out, bewildered, "Princess." Misa suddenly placed her hand on his shoulder. She climbed onto his lap. A surprised Eric watched as Misa reached for the letter on the table. Eric handed it to her. "Are you curious? It's not that interesting." Watching Misa happily take the paper, he thought, the princess always avoids me. It wasn't so bad having her close like this. The princess was tearing the paper, playing and giggling. He watched her silently. Eric lowered his head. Until now, he hadn't thought much about the sudden and harsh circumstances with the king. A new feeling washed over him when he thought that she was the person he would have to spend his life with. When he first learned about knighthood as a child, it was a word that brought both responsibility and pride. However, not long after, he had to face reality and wake up from that sweet dream. No matter how many beautiful words were attached to it, in the end, the blood oath to the family was essentially just being a breeding stallion for the next generation. So he didn't really expect anything from the person who would become his wife. He didn't care if she found joy in tearing paper to shreds like this. After realizing his exact position and responsibilities as the heir to the family, it seemed he hadn't placed much hope in a relationship with a woman. Misa suddenly reached for another piece of paper. He quickly caught her wrist, stopping her. He pulled her close and gently said, "Stop." He picked up the paper. Holding the paper up high, he said, "You can't tear this." Misa cried out, wanting the paper. He said, "Don't be like that. I haven't read this yet." Misa widened her eyes and made some sounds of protest. Eric remained firm, holding the paper out of her reach. "Even so, you can't." Scene changed to the Count's mansion. Eden spoke to Lady Telesa. "My lady, it will be March soon. Should we have someone prepare a large fireplace?" Looking at the paper in her hand, she replied, "It's better to prepare a small fireplace beforehand. It seems colder than usual this year." She hadn't finished speaking when suddenly a voice called out, "Princess," slowly. Looking up, she saw Misa running in, followed by DL, who didn't know proper etiquette. Lady Telesa exclaimed in surprise, "Oh my." Misa immediately laid down on the floor. The Countess, seeing this, simply said, "The princess has arrived." Her eyes lowered, showing no particular emotion. Looking at DL swaggering beside her, she said, "I heard the princess is always with her maid. What brings you to see me today?" Eden laughed, "Oh my, madam. Princess, you make her sound like a stranger." She replied, "Is that so? I still don't know how to address her." She looked at DL and asked, "DL, since I come from the border region, I'm not familiar with the customs of the royal court. In this case, how should I address the princess?" "Let's see." Countess Clatney immediately understood. As she suspected, not only was it unhelpful, but it also showed a lack of effort towards even a superficial harmony. Beside her, Eden said, "My lady, I've made some inquiries." She mentioned a case 3 generations ago. At that time, the Lord and Lady of House FV addressed the princess by her given name. And, she continued, the young master also called the princess his wife. So, shouldn't we also address the princess by her given name? Yes, Lady Telesa said, I hear the princess's given name is Misa. She tentatively called out, Misa. Misa reacted immediately. She sat bolt upright and grinned broadly. Countess Clatney smiled back. Oh my, the princess has permitted us to use her given name. Misa flopped back down as Countess Clatney praised her. Such a lovely name, DL said from the side. It seems the princess is quite fond of you, my lady. Might I request your presence before dinner? Countess Clatney waved her hand dismissively. Yes, you should go and rest now. DL bowed her head. Yes, my lady. Then she promptly turned and left, without a word of farewell. Lady Telesa sighed. Eric, standing behind them, was filled with contempt. Useless. Can't even handle something as simple as how to address someone. She said to Countess Clatney, I hear that DL has been wandering around all day, yet still manages to bathe the princess meticulously. She then asked, has Malika also been disappearing every day without anyone knowing where she goes? Countess Clatney smirked, a calculating glint in her eyes. Clearly, there's a reason for such blatant laziness. Looking at Misa playing on the floor, she said, for now, we have no choice but to go along with their pace. We don't know what they'll try to blame us for. Eden agreed. Yes, that's my biggest concern. Indeed, Lady Telesa sighed. Eden bowed her head. Yes, my lady. Lady Telesa, frowning slightly, opened one eye. Could you fetch me my headache medicine? I'll be in my room alone. Yes, my lady. A short while later, a maid arrived with the medicine. Eden accepted it, carefully asking, is this the same medicine you usually take, my lady? The maid quickly replied, yes, I brought the one from your bedside table. Eden glanced at her and said absently, thank you for your trouble. Seeing Misa sitting at Lady Telesa's feet, she addressed the maid who had just brought the medicine. Looking at Misa on the floor, she said, I brought your headache medicine, my lady. I'll just put it here for now. Seeing Misa dozing on Countess Clatney's lap, Eden thought to herself, how unusual. I never would have expected my lady to offer her lap to someone like that. Placing the medicine on the table, she gently asked, are you all right, my lady? If the pain is too much. Before she could finish, Lady Telesa spoke. The princess is 20 years old, isn't she? Although confused, Eden replied, yes, that's correct. Lady Telesa said slowly, is that so? I heard that when she was young, the princess witnessed the brutal massacre of more than half the royal family. Stroking Misa's hair, she said with a look of pity, poor thing. It must have been unbearably painful. Even now, she's still being used and manipulated. It never ends. Eden hesitated at Countess Clatney's unusual demeanor. My lady, Lady Telesa continued in the same pitying tone. Such a beautiful girl. Her words startled Eden. Her features and the color of her eyes are so lovely. Misa remained still as the Countess stroked her head. Just good care and proper meals are enough. Eden hesitated, her eyes wide. She was astonished. When did the Countess notice such details? Lady Telesa added, her hair is always disheveled, so it's hard to see her face clearly. Misa suddenly turned her head and looked, surprising Eden. Looking in her eyes, Eden had to admit, thinking back, their eye color is very similar. Her eyes widened. Could it be? Misa sat up. Lady Telesa exclaimed, oh my. Eden seemed to have realized something. Is it possible? The Countess said, Misa, your nails need trimming. Your hair needs brushing too. Hearing that, Misa made a sound and looked at her nails. Eden wondered if the princess reminded her of that child. Meanwhile, Eric, wiping his sweat, asked the butler, where are mother and the head of the family? The butler replied, yes, madam has been with the princess all morning. Eric absent-mindedly replied, I see. He walked from the doorway. Before reaching his destination, he heard Eden's worried voice. Oh dear, give them to me, madam. I'll cut her toenails. The Countess, holding Misa's foot in her hand, refused. It's all right. It's better if I do it myself. Eden was helpless. Suddenly, Eric entered. Mother, what are you doing? Looking at his bewildered face, she simply said, Eric, you're here. He hesitated. Eric stared at his mother's hand, holding Misa's foot, bewildered. He felt a strange feeling as soon as he entered the room. Lady Telesa chuckled. Eric was astonished, trimming toenails. He recalled his childhood. He thought, given his mother's usual demeanor, could she possibly have gentle feelings for someone? There's no way she would devote herself to touching someone's feet so tenderly. Isn't she usually so rational, even cold to her own son? Looking at her smiling face, he couldn't believe it. But now, she looked strangely warm. His mother's only exception. That was the expression she usually showed to Yossi. While she was alive, anyway, Mother has accepted the princess. If she reflects Yossi's image, Mother's daughter. Yes, Eric slowly approached. Give me the scissors. I'll do it. The Countess refused. It's all right. Let me do it. He took the scissors from her hand. Let me do it. He couldn't help but feel uneasy. Would it be all right to let his mother continue like this? The reason why these worries kept surfacing was because the images of his mother on the day Yossi died kept flashing back. He thought as he lifted Misa's foot, but should he stop this? Eric bent down and gently trimmed the princess's toenails. Misa watched silently. Eden, seeing her lying still, said, "Oh my, thankfully the princess is remaining calm." Misa's lips parted slightly, realizing something was wrong. Eden turned back. She was startled to see Misa's face contorted in a frown. She felt a deep unease. It was that strange, uncomfortable feeling. She glanced warily at the plate of cookies on the table. Misa's expression didn't look good. Before Misa could throw a tantrum, she quickly shoved a cookie into the princess's mouth. For a moment, all four of them froze. Eric turned and asked, "What did you just do?" Eden sighed in relief. The princess seemed upset. He thought back to a moment ago when the princess was also acting up when the countess was brushing her hair. She calmed down as soon as she was given sweets. The princess seems to really like sweets. Eric made a sound of acknowledgement. The princess giggled. Seeing the countess smile, he couldn't help but be surprised. His mother said cheerfully, "How can Misa chew like that? Look at the way she eats." She rested her chin in her hand. Even so, it's good that the princess likes sweets. It's nice to see Misa enjoying her food. Eric just silently watched. As night fell, Eric became more and more confused. "I can't understand it." Inside, Eric and Misa were having dinner together. He gently reminded her, "Chew properly. Don't swallow too quickly." Misa, her face smeared with food, hummed in response. Eric wondered, what did Mother see in the princess? He thought of Yossi as he wiped Misa's mouth with a napkin. Misa uncomfortably dodged his hand. He couldn't help but think the only similarity between Yossi and the princess is their eye color. He stared at her. But if we're talking about similar eye color, there's also my cousin, Ambridge. It's not like Mother never treated Ambridge specially. He muttered, "It's impossible to know." The butler entered from outside. "I apologize. I'm a bit late preparing the roasted quail." Eric replied, "Just put on the table." He placed the plate of roasted quail on the table. "Yes, young master." Eric glanced at Misa. "Come to think of it, it seems like the princess becomes relatively calmer when it's just the two of us. It's difficult with this small amount of food." Suddenly, Misa clutched her head and groaned, seemingly in great pain. Eric was bewildered by her behavior. He anxiously approached her. "What's wrong? Where does it hurt?" Misa couldn't answer, only humming and expressing her discomfort. He noticed her repeatedly trying to cover the quail dish with her hand. He asked, "What is it? Could it be the quail? Should I have it removed?" Misa continued to be distressed, so he stood up. "I'll have it removed right away." He was bewildered. Those two maids clearly said she wasn't a picky eater. He took the quail dish to the door. "Take this dish away." He returned, confused. What was that about? He looked at Misa quizzically. She seemed less frightened now, sitting at the table. Could she have gotten sick from eating quail before? The next morning, a voice called out in the mansion, "Young madam." The maids, carrying clothes in their hands, said worriedly, "Young madam, the floor is cold. Please don't lie there." Seeing Misa still lying there playing with a ball of yarn, without moving, one maid said, "It seems like she has no intention of moving." Another kindly smiled. "Let me spread out the blankets for her to lie on." Misa rolled over onto the blankets spread on the floor. The maid gently instructed, "The floor is cold and hard, so always lie on this cloth, okay?" Misa didn't reply, but the maid patiently sat beside her. "How does that feel? Much better, right? You need to respond somehow. Are you sleepy?" Two other maids, seeing this, scoffed. "Why does she keep talking to herself?" The other agreed. "Exactly." The old maid sighed. "Anyway, the young mistress doesn't understand anything." Another maid, her hair wrapped in a crooked bun, giggled. "That's strange. If that's the case, she should at least understand the gist of it. The young master often speaks like that, too." A red-haired maid scoffed. "Constantly talking to someone who doesn't even understand. She even uses her hands to describe things. He always holds her like this, she says. And he's so gentle. It's like the young mistress's feet never touch the ground." She added sarcastically, "A man who's never shown any interest in women. Isn't it strange? I wonder if the young master's preferences lie elsewhere." The blonde maid spoke up indignantly. "Hey, what are you saying?" She challenged them. "Wouldn't it be nice if they had a good marital relationship? What's the big deal?" The red-haired maid stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. It's not like that." The blonde maid immediately warned, "If you don't want to be thrown out, be careful what you say. There are many eyes and ears around here." An orange-clad maid entered, looking bewildered. "What's going on? Why is everyone so quiet all of a sudden?" Someone beside her replied, It's nothing." The worried maid frowned. "But wouldn't it be better if the young mistress wore nicer clothes instead of those?" Another agreed. "It's such a shame. She's such a beautiful princess, but look at her sleeping." Someone else chimed in, "True, but maybe the young mistress's clothes get dirty easily, so that's why, especially during meals." Another maid agreed. "That's probably it." The orange-clad maid suddenly had an idea. If the problem is her clothes getting dirty, what do you think about making a bib for her? The worried maid giggled. Would that be all right? They began discussing excitedly, choosing patterns to embroider for Misa right in front of the three maids who had been gossiping earlier. Just embroider it nicely and it'll be fine. Yes, the young mistress would look lovely in yellow. The three gossiping maids were speechless as they watched the others happily choose embroidery patterns. How about this one? Let's make our own. The scene shifted to Eric at the soldier training grounds. Eric looked up at the sun, thinking to himself, it seems lunchtime has long passed. He was worried about Misa. Has she been eating properly? He wondered. She still looked so listless this morning. With that thought, he dismissed the soldiers. All right, that's enough training for today. The soldiers responded in unison. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Eric strode down the hallway, his heart filled with worry. That first morning she arrived, she had no energy and stayed in her room all day. She clearly hasn't been eating enough. She won't be able to play properly with the maids. He thought, I'm not even sure she will play with them. But his worries were unfounded when he heard the report of Misa's activities. Just before lunch, she fell into the stream in the garden and took a bath. After lunch, she took a nap. Now she's in the maids' quarters. Eric was astonished. What? He asked anxiously. Fell into the stream? How? The steward replied. It seems she fell in while watching the fish on her way to the chapel with Madam. Eric breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, is that so? With my mother? He felt a little reassured. Well, if she's with my mother, she's not in any danger. Eric turned around. In any case, he smiled faintly. She's had a busy day. As Eric walked away, the steward continued, but it seems the young mistress doesn't like the chapel very much. Eric replied, well, it's a boring place. I can't imagine my wife sitting still there for long. The steward added, at first, when Madam took her along, she obediently followed. But when we arrived, she started crying, fussing right from the entrance. There was no other way but to stay outside with the maids until it ended. Yes, Eric murmured thoughtfully. He wondered if offering sweets like yesterday would help. Suddenly, he spoke up. All right. The steward, hearing his instruction, bowed his head. Yes, I understand. Inside the room, Eric and Misa were having dinner together again. Misa opened her mouth wide, waiting to be fed. Eric placed a spoonful of food into her mouth. You have a good appetite today. Eric sighed in relief. Good, she's recovered quickly. He glanced at Misa, who was happily enjoying her meal. It was just a bad mood yesterday. Picking up a piece of meat with some vegetables, he said, don't just eat meat. Eat your vegetables too. He offered the fork. Here. Misa obediently opened her mouth. The vegetable, however, slipped and fell onto her chest. Eric set the fork down. It's all right. I'll get you another one. As he reached for the fallen piece, his hand hesitated. He looked at the awkward position of the food, clearly hesitant. Finally, he reached out, stammering, Excuse me. The piece of food was lifted in front of Misa. She lunged forward, causing Eric to panic. Misa grabbed his arm. He quickly said, no, I'll cut you another piece. This one isn't for eating. But Misa, lips pursed, continued to clutch his hand, leaving Eric exasperated. Why? Why are you so stubborn? While Eric was distracted, Misa bit the piece of food off his finger. Eric was stunned. Misa then sucked on his finger, leaving it wet. Flustered, Eric abruptly pulled his finger back. Misa froze, her eyes widening before her lips pressed together in a tight line. Misa, furious, looked like a bristling cat. Before anyone could react, she snatched the tablecloth. With a sharp tug, the food on the table scattered everywhere. Lady Telesa, hearing the commotion from outside, peeked in. She sighed, looking at Eric sitting still, facing Misa with a plate on her head. She thought with exasperation, every meal is so tiring. Taking Misa's hand, she pulled her away, whispering, come with me, quickly. Eric sat in silence, the princess's teeth marks visible on his index finger. He thought, damn it. That night, the two slept in the same bed again, but Eric lay curled up in a corner, facing away. His hand clenched, his mind in turmoil. He remembered the feeling in Misa's mouth, the warmth on his fingertip. It seemed to linger still. Though she's my wife, she's no different from a child. She probably doesn't even understand what a husband is, he realized. The princess is definitely not someone to be perceived with reason, so this won't do. Eric covered his face, his cheeks and ears burning red. Absolutely not. The next morning, in Lady Teles's room, Eden said, there's a poetry reading this Wednesday. Lady Telesa stroked Misa's hair as she lay in her lap, worriedly saying, there will probably be a lot of people. I'm worried it might frighten Misa. Eric turned and said, there's no need for a gathering. Why go to such lengths? Lady Telesa chuckled. Is that so? She said casually. People will be scavenging for scraps like hyenas. We have to show them we're living well. Misa remained silent, staring blankly. The name sounds reasonable enough, but in reality, it's a gathering of the female heads of like-minded families. Once a month, they meet to exchange opinions about the royal family and corrupt nobles. It's a pretty good place to pick up information. This time, Countess Clatney is hosting. That's why the greenhouse has been so busy with preparations these past few days. More importantly, Lady Crispin and her only daughter, Lacan, are expected to attend this gathering. At a point of quiet interest for everyone, as this is the first meeting since the two families broke off the engagement. Of course, we can't discuss who was responsible for ending it. After all, it's clear that your mood wouldn't be very good. The Countess looked down at Misa. The greenhouse is almost ready, Misa. Shall we go now? Misa hummed in response. Eric turned and gently asked Misa, "Did you have fun playing today?" The Countess chuckled. "You talk as if you left her with a nanny." "Well, I did have a lot of fun today," Misa replied. Then, the Countess suggested to Eric, "Since you're here, why don't you join us in looking at the greenhouse?" He declined. "I still have work to do. I just came by to see her for a bit." But Misa remained comfortably nestled on Countess Tellis's lap. Suddenly, he reconsidered. "No, I'll go for a little while and then come back." Inside the greenhouse, Eric set Misa down, and to his surprise, she took off running barefoot. The maids were startled to see Misa arrive. Eric sighed in relief. Thankfully, during the day, she just seems like a child or a small animal. She happily explored the area while the maids behind her approached the Count. "Please take a look at this, sir. And this one, too." He smiled softly. "Seeing her like this puts my mind at ease. It seems like the tension I've been feeling has eased a bit." From behind, a girl approached. "Oh my." The maid, holding a birdcage, smiled. "Madam Misa, did you come to see the greenhouse?" The bird inside the cage fidgeted as the maid spoke. "Why didn't you come to the maid's quarters to play earlier?" The bird's expression seemed to darken. The maid's voice remained even. "We're always waiting, never knowing when you might visit." Suddenly, Misa froze. Her eyes widened, seemingly filled with fear. The maid called out, "Madam Misa." A bloody, violent scene flashed through her mind. "Misa," the dove looked at her, as if speaking. "Miss, your mother did something wrong after all. Even if it's your mother, if she made a mistake, she has to be punished, right? I wonder what she's doing now." The bird opened its beak menacingly and chirped. Misa screamed, covering her face, and collapsed to the ground. The two maids looked on in confusion, unsure of what had happened. Everyone in the greenhouse turned to look. The two palace maids glanced at each other. Only Lady Tellisa turned back with concern. Eric rushed out from the crowd, calling Misa's name. "Misa," he helped her up. "Are you all right? Lean on me." Misa was crying from fright. He asked the maid what happened. The maid, still holding the birdcage, stammered, I don't know. Misa suddenly clung tightly to him. Eric was taken aback. Misa buried her face in his shoulder, trembling. Eric looked at her, guessing. He figured seeing that bird must have upset her. The maid seemed surprised by the bird. Malika, standing behind them, calmly explained, "The princess is very afraid of birds, as you can see." The maid quickly hid the birdcage behind her back upon learning of the princess's fear. Eric said, "I don't think it's simply a fear of birds. The princess has always been a bit different." Countess Clatney frowned. This should have been mentioned beforehand. Eden, beside her, added, "If you weren't planning on telling anyone, why did you even bring her?" The two spiteful women continued to justify themselves, complaining about how they bathed and dressed the princess every day. They showed no deference to the countess. Malika raised an eyebrow and said impertinently, "How can you be so rude? Just because I didn't mention it." Eden gritted her teeth. "What did you say?" She was so angry she couldn't say anything more. Lady Tellis's face darkened. Eric was holding Misa. He seemed to notice Lady Tellis's displeasure. Misa whimpered softly in his arms, seemingly wanting to leave. He immediately understood. "I'll take her away now." Eric carried her out of the greenhouse. He looked down at her with concern. Misa cowered fearfully. He wondered if this was why she wouldn't eat the roasted quail. He spoke gently to Misa. "There won't be any birds on the dining table anymore. I'll have them removed from the greenhouse as well." Suddenly, Misa reached out in a particular direction. Eric asked, "Do you want to go to the garden?" "There might be birds there, though." Misa clutched his shirt tightly. Eric wondered if she felt stifled being only inside the mansion. "I understand," he said. "Let's go then." He carried Misa to a swing under the shade of a leafy tree. Come to think of it, except for the one time her mother took her to the chapel, Misa seemed to spend every day inside the mansion. The wind rustled the leaves in the sunlight. Eric spoke softly to Misa. "Don't worry, just relax." He stroked her reddened eyes. "If any birds come, I'll chase them away." Misa watched him silently as he spoke. "If you fall asleep, I'll take you back to your room." He looked up at her dark hair, swaying gently in the breeze. Misa's eyes fluttered closed, and then she fell asleep. Silence fell, broken only by the rustling of the wind and the falling of green leaves. Suddenly, a figure approached, shattering the peace. "Taking a stroll with your wife." Eric chuckled. "You two seem to be getting along quite well." The man approached slowly. "Is your wife asleep?" Eric said coldly. "Go away." Amberich leaned against the swing, laughing. "How grumpy. What's wrong? Are you afraid of waking her?" He placed a hand on his cheek. "There are a lot of rumors about you, too. Everyone in the family knows." Eric looked up. Who was it this time? Eric understood. His uncle was trying to position his son, Amberich, as the head of the family. The family gossip spreading wasn't something to be easily dismissed. Amberich laughed. "Among your maids, there's one named Bina from the capital with red hair." Eric had heard she was a new maid, and she and another servant have been going around. He paused, then continued, "With a thin, brown-haired man named Eric." He looked at him thoughtfully, but Eric, being a libertine, had no interest in becoming the head of the family. They even had each other's backs on the battlefield, because they had built trust by exchanging what could have been their last words. Amberich had supported him, even more than his own uncle, right from the start. He sighed and said, "Thank you. I'm indebted to you again." Amberich plopped down on the ground. "It's not like that. I've been happy these last few days." Looking at Eric, he asked, "Compared to that, how about you?" Seeing Eric hadn't understood his question, he continued, "Have you really fallen for your wife? I heard you even cut her toenails yourself." Eric denied it. "It's just that I couldn't stand by and watch my mother do things like that." Amberich glanced sideways. "Right, that could be it. But seeing you today, how should I put it?" He looked at Eric thoughtfully. "Hung is going too far." Eric closed his eyes. "What are you trying to say?" He then added, "I heard your wife's feet haven't even touched the ground. You don't even put her down normally." Eric immediately offered an explanation. "That day, you saw yourself that her legs weren't well. What else could someone who didn't know do? Could I just let her drag herself around like at the wedding? How could I do that to my wife?" "Yes," Amberich said with a wry smile. "Yes, that's right. For many practical reasons. A sense of responsibility and compassion." He stood up. "No. Anyway," he looked directly at Eric. "I just can't understand." He got straight to the point. "Well, I heard the rumors. I just thought your acting was to deceive the king. It was brilliant. But now no one's watching." He pointed at the two of them. "So why is it like this? Are you really going to keep this woman like this?" Eric said coldly, "Shut up." Amberich continued, "No, I'm asking because I honestly don't know what you're thinking. In terms of enjoyment, it's better to get rid of it quickly." He continued, hands on his hips. "You're about to marry Lacan Crispin. Then heaven knows what will happen." Eric, unable to listen anymore, said, "Stop it." He lowered his head. "Anyway, it doesn't matter who I marry as long as it benefits the family. Because I brought her along, the king will leave things be for a while." He looked at Misa, sleeping peacefully in his arms. "Right now, there's no greater benefit than that. It can't be helped, but it's the right choice." He looked up, and she doesn't know anything. He slowly added, "Right now, she's sitting on someone's lap. She's being treated like this. Is it really necessary to make her more unhappy?" Amberich sighed. "Everyone treats the princess like a disease." Eric lowered his head again. "A disease," he said softly, "truly a disease." Several days passed. A poetry reading was held in the greenhouse. The matriarchs of families close to Countess Clatney arrived one after another. The mother and daughter of the Crispin family also appeared. After everyone had taken their seats, Eric and Misa appeared and offered simple greetings. Despite facing dozens of curious gazes for a moment, the two received less than sincere congratulations. Furthermore, throughout the greetings, there was an uncomfortable atmosphere between the Crispin and Granny families. Everyone pretended not to notice, but they were secretly paying attention. He picked Misa up. "Well then, since my wife isn't feeling well, we'll excuse ourselves. Have a pleasant time, everyone." With that, he turned and walked away with Misa. Lacan silently watched them go. Scene changed. She had been following them for some time. She called out, "Wait." Eric didn't turn around, only coldly asked, "What is it?" Lacan replied, "I want to talk for a moment." Behind a tree, a figure lurked. Eric said, "Isn't it reckless to walk alone like this?" The woman behind the tree strained her ears to listen. Lacan got straight to the point. "Since there isn't much time, I'll be brief." She looked directly at the two of them. "Don't have children with her." Eric frowned in confusion. The two stared at each other. Lacan, one hand behind her back, clutched a handkerchief. After speaking, she bid them farewell, promising to see them again later. In the Crispin family carriage, Lady Crispin asked, "Did you just drop your handkerchief?" "Yes," Lacan replied. "Have you properly conveyed the message to the son of the Grady family?" She curtly replied, "Yes." Lady Crispin grimaced and clicked her tongue. "You saw it just now, didn't you? The two of them embracing. So happy. Disgusting." Lacan remained impassive as she listened. She's the kind of girl men like. A beautiful face and a lovely smile. She emphasized, selfishly, "You must secure your place in the Grady family. Only then will you and I receive the treatment we deserve." One could say Lacan Crispin was raised to produce an heir, educated only in the virtues of being a mistress of the house. But Lacan, that remained silent. Lacan looked down at the calluses on her hands. Night fell again. Eric was still sitting at his desk. He appeared weary. Lately, my head has been overloaded, thanks to my father being busy with royal duties, to the point of almost neglecting the family's affairs. I suddenly have to shoulder most of the family's responsibilities alone. One of the most pressing issues was the prolonged war, which had caused enormous damage to the people and their property. Their territory was short on food to survive the summer. Of course, if they could secure food and endure until autumn, though when the soldiers returned and production increased, the situation would gradually stabilize. From the beginning, the Grady family had contributed the most to this war. They received sufficient compensation, so they shouldn't have to worry about such matters. But this was the reward the king bestowed upon the Grady family, not a mediocre spoil of war. The Halleck's mines were granted for development. He glanced over at Misa, who was sitting up in bed. A princess. Eric pondered silently. The Halleck's mines could take several years to develop. Frantically searching for food now wouldn't help much. Misa walked towards him. Eric asked, "You've been waking up in the middle of the night a lot lately, haven't you?" He continued to think. The core issue was how to manage what they had and secure food. The king pretended not to know, so ultimately, the family had to find food themselves. Of course, it didn't mean financial hardship. If there were any problems because his father was absent, the vassals would point their fingers at him. This unexpected situation made everyone anticipate trouble, much more than he had imagined. It was like a shield weighing down his limbs. Suddenly, he was startled. Misa was standing beside him, tugging at his shirt. He quickly said, "I apologize. I was thinking about something else. Do you want to climb up?" Misa wrapped her arms around his neck. Eric froze, his eyelids drooping. At that moment, Ambrich's puzzled expression flashed through his mind. It was true. Who could understand? He put his arms around her. He didn't understand himself. Misa softly uttered, "Eric." He opened a jar of candy. He popped the candy into her mouth and asked, "Are you leaving?" Thinking to himself, "I don't know what this is." He told her, "Don't go. Stay a little longer." He smiled. Just having this small woman close, not running away, but holding on to him like this, seemed to bring an inexplicable comfort to his restless mood. Inside the Grady mansion, the Crispin maid stood in a line. "Countess, what is it?" The head maid stammered. "It's because Lady Crispin dropped her handkerchief." Lady Tellis's eyes widened. She knew that among the nobility, a handkerchief was an item exchanged between men and women as a token of affection. An unmarried woman visiting the home of her formerly betrothed, who was now married, dropping a handkerchief was a significant issue. She immediately called for Eden. Have the maids in the mansion search for the handkerchief with them. There might be unpleasant rumors. Say it's the Countess's handkerchief. Yes, Eden immediately acknowledged the order. "Yes, I understand." Throughout the mansion, the maids searched together. The head maid of the Crispin household suddenly looked around. She spotted Malika. Malika nodded in acknowledgement. The two of them went to a corner. The Crispin maid spoke. "I'll be brief. She needs to be dealt with within 2 years at the latest." Malika smirked. "If you want, it can be done immediately. Even tomorrow." The other woman replied, "This isn't something that can be done so easily." She lowered her head. "In any case, we'll need to communicate frequently from now on, and it won't always be possible to find an excuse to meet." Malika chuckled. "This is a common occurrence in the capital. I keep up with things quite well." Her face darkened. "First, let's decide on the date and location for our next meeting. I'll try to arrange it." As dusk settled, Lady Tellisa brushed Misa's hair. "Misa, it's been a long time since the whole family has gathered for a meal together. It would be wonderful if you could remain calm tonight." Seeing her chewing on the handkerchief in her hand without responding, she paused and then said, "No." "Misa, pretend you didn't hear anything." She continued brushing her hair. "The important thing is to eat well." "Oh dear, why are you so thin?" Lady Tellisa carefully brushed each strand of her hair. "There, isn't it nice to have your hair brushed so thoroughly?" Meanwhile, the Count stood silently watching, his face darkened and grim. During the meal, his presence made the atmosphere incredibly stifling. The screech of utensils scraping against plates echoed. He and the two servants behind him gritted their teeth, grimacing in discomfort. Looking at his wife and son, who remained composed, he demanded, "What is the meaning of this?" Lady Tellisa lifted her wine glass and said casually, "Well, Misa is practicing. Don't say anything." He was surprised. "What?" The Countess turned and saw Eric patiently instructing Misa. "Hold this with your hand and take it off. Give me your hand." He scoffed angrily. "This is all ridiculous. How old is she that she needs to be looked after every step of the way like this?" Lady Tellisa poured him some wine. Red wine flowed into the glass as she spoke. "It's better than ignoring Misa completely." She gave a knowing smile. "Misa wouldn't want your attention anyway." The Count, enraged, roared, "What did you say?" The Countess, unconcerned by his outburst, turned to Eric. "Eric, make sure Misa eats her vegetables too." "Misa, you're eating so well." His eyes darkened. Eric was busy attending to the princess. "You should chew, don't swallow so slowly." The Count slammed his fork down on the table. He stood up abruptly. I have an audience with His Majesty now. Until then, don't fall or we'll get a scratch on you. The three of them seemed unconcerned. Ignoring them, the Count snatched his cloak and stormed out. Lady Telesa spoke up. Come to think of it, there are only a few days left. She looked at Eric and asked, Eric, have you prepared a gift to bring to the palace? He replied, Yes, mother. I have prepared something suitable. Eric held out his hand. Misa spat the unwanted food from her mouth into it. Lady Telesa continued, Well, it's good that you know what to do. I hope nothing unusual happens. In the Squirrel Kingdom, 5 days after the wedding, married couples must visit the wife's family. Eric's face darkened. In his and Misa's case, that would be the royal palace. Scene change. Servants bustled about, preparing for the journey. This is the last one. Just load this up and we're done. The carriage pulled up to the palace gates. Malika stood with her hands on her hips, saying something. Eric gazed pensively outside. This morning, we depart for the palace. For some reason, the maid played her part awkwardly. He glanced at Misa, who was lying quietly beside him. Suddenly, something occurred to him. Having given up all expectations regarding his marriage partner, he had been met with sympathetic glances. A wife like this wasn't as bad as he'd thought. He called out, leaning closer to Misa. Do you know my name? Eric asked. Misa didn't answer, burying her face instead. Eric chuckled softly. Even though she doesn't know who I am, having someone to protect, it's still a life worth living. He said gently, It's all right. Misa glanced up, hearing him speak. Oh. Eric looked at her with gentle eyes. I was just wondering. Malika suddenly stepped into the carriage. Already sharing a carriage with her master, this hideous woman glared at them and gave orders as if she were in charge. Now let's depart. The carriage lurched forward. The three of them sat in silence inside the carriage as it traveled towards the capital. Misa and Eric were met by a guide. Please follow this way. Their leather shoes clicked softly against the floor. Harsh sunlight streamed through the window panes. Cold, gray marble covered every inch of the main hall. Everything seemed designed to intimidate. Thinking about the king's various moods brought only a surge of unease. 20 years ago, the young king had ascended the throne, consolidating his power without any major difficulties. Because the Salachi's clan, the king's maternal family, was already very powerful. But 12 years ago, while many were away fighting in the war, something happened in the capital. No one knew exactly what, but the king's behavior changed drastically. The floor of the main hall was never dry of blood. Before the stains could be cleaned, another head would roll. If you walked by, you might mistake it for just a stone. Someone's body lay there. The two of them entered, following the guide. The king was already waiting for them. Eric bowed his head. Your Majesty. The emperor smirked, decked in jewels, with a beautiful woman at his feet. He looked up and said, It's been a while, hasn't it? His disgusting voice rang out. In a time we haven't met, Misa's face has become much more beautiful. Misa bowed low as soon as she arrived. She collapsed to the ground. The emperor, seeing this, simply watched silently. He laughed. Misa's complexion looks much better. I hope to receive good news about the child soon. Isn't that right, Eric? Eric remained silent, not answering. He thought about how, from the wedding night, he had been as careful as possible to avoid suspicion from the king. He cautiously replied, Your Majesty, we are also hoping for that. It will happen as soon as possible. However, I do not intend to make someone who knows nothing endure the pain of childbirth. He added, My wife's health is still not good. The emperor, still listening to the attendant beside him, chuckled and replied, Ah, is that so? Without discussing the matter of health, the successor only needs a child who follows the path already laid out. Is enough. The person beside him was still saying something. The emperor was amused. Or rather, the maids had said some interesting things. The evidence from the wedding night was covered in blood. As she bathed, her lower body was still untouched. Even from the wedding night until now, the bedsheets and the princess's body all were spotlessly clean. He stepped down. As he walked, he coldly asked, Are you not satisfied with the heir, the royal bloodline? Eric was startled. A slip up. The emperor pressed close, pointing a finger at his chest. All right, open your mouth and tell me. You haven't even touched the princess, yet you readily accepted the royal marriage. He closed his eyes tightly. No, that's not it, Your Majesty. Fear gripped his heart. He hadn't expected the maids to report even that. The emperor smirked again. So that's how it is. He walked around and patted Eric's shoulder. You've mocked both the royal family and the Grady family, leaving such a lovely Misa unused. He looked up, then turned back coldly. So, would this be considered opposing the royal family? Eric stiffened, his hand clenching. Was he really going to be pressured like this? There would be no escape if the king personally named him an enemy. The lives of his parents, the lives of those who followed the Clatney family. What would become of them? Around 70 knights had been brought in from the capital. He frowned slightly. They were nothing compared to the royal guard and the capital's defense force. The emperor raised his hand. Misa, come here. She immediately crawled obediently towards him. He waved cheerfully, as if calling a dog. Yes, yes. He placed his hand on her head. My poor little sister. Misa, tell me. The emperor leaned closer to her. Did your husband take off your clothes on your wedding night? Misa didn't answer, foolishly touching his shoe. The emperor grabbed her hair hard. Misa screamed in pain. Eric, behind them, was instantly alarmed. Your Majesty. The emperor growled. Misa, I'm asking you. Did he touch your body? Eric shouted, trying to intervene. Your Majesty, please let go of her first. Misa bit her lip, moaning in pain. She weakly opened her mouth. Here. Everyone was stunned, especially the girl kneeling at the emperor's feet. Eric froze, hearing his wife's voice for the first time. Here. Misa sat on the ground, repeatedly crying out here. It hurts. It hurts. The emperor's face darkened, while Eric's eyes widened in shock, as her voice continued to echo here. Hurts. He wondered what was this. The emperor stood up. All right, that's enough. He looked down with disgust. It's truly unpleasant to hear my sister speak like that. How filthy. He kicked her. Misa fell to the ground. He coldly ordered, now get out. Eric rushed forward and embraced her. Misa buried her face in his shoulder. Eric's jaw clenched. The emperor simply looked down at them. The carriage rattled on its return journey. Eric silently held Misa in his arms. Misa, as usual, slept soundly. Only Eric's demeanor seemed different. The carriage stopped in front of the mansion. The servants were already outside to greet them. Welcome back. The butler immediately asked, is everything all right? Eric didn't answer, only saying, I'll take care of my wife today. He made a grim face as he ordered. Therefore, no one is allowed on the second floor today. The butler was extremely bewildered. Young master, Eric ignored his questioning and instructed, go to the knight's quarters and bring Conran, and tell him to stand guard on the second floor for me. The butler could only reply, yes, I understand. He looked up at the unusually noisy second floor with confusion. Misa screamed and struggled in Eric's arms. He ignored her and continued walking. Conran was already waiting. You called for me, Commander. He asked. Eric spoke concisely. Have you received the instructions? Absolutely no one is to come near here today. If anything happens, report to me immediately. Conran didn't question him and immediately acknowledged, understood. Eric opened the door to the room and entered. He threw Misa onto the bed. Now, no one can hear you, even if you scream or cry. Eric grabbed her wrist and leaned close. No one will come. His voice deepened as he spoke. Do you understand what I'm saying? No matter what you say, no one will hear you. His brow furrowed. So, say something. Now I know you can speak. Misa looked at him in astonishment. Her lips pursed, then she bared her teeth. Misa grinned at him. Eric remained silent. He tightened his grip on her wrist. I'm very patient. He slowly said to her, how long do you intend to keep pretending? If I hadn't known, would you have continued to deceive me like this? Suddenly, he couldn't speak coherently. What in the world? You. Her voice finally rang out again, making Eric freeze. Me. Misa gave him a strange smile. She repeated Lady Tellus's words. It would be better to ignore Misa. Misa doesn't want your concern anyway. Eric looked at her, speechless. Misa looked back and smiled faintly. Eric was extremely confused. That moment, I doubted my own hands. He paused for a moment before asking, what was that act in front of the emperor? His tone was firm and fluent. Misa tilted her head and continued, everyone will come scavenging for scraps like hyenas. We have to show them we're doing well. Eric pondered, words I'm certain I've heard before, different from her usual gentle face and soft voice. His hand trembled slightly with tension. Eric's eyes finally softened. He released her. I didn't intend to pressure you. His mind was a tangled mess. It's truly hard to believe she's this. Lucid, he didn't question her further. What has that sharp mind been thinking all this time? I heard she witnessed her mother's death at the age of 8. And after that, she also witnessed her half-siblings, sharing the same father but different mothers, being killed one by the king. So she chose a way to survive. Worse than treating an animal. It could be contempt and mockery. Thinking about the years she's endured makes me speechless. I haven't known her for long. Can I possibly soothe those years of resentment? Or soothe them with shallow words, saying she's suffered enough? Eric's hand unconsciously clenched. I want to say something to her, but he slowly stood up. I have nothing to say. So in the end, I swallowed it all down. The next morning, Misa was still asleep in bed. The servants entered, just waking up. Outside, the butler pushed in a cart of food, followed by Malika and the maids. She watched silently while the butler said, I brought your meal. The male lead didn't say anything. The antagonist approached the bed and called, Princess. She feigned sweetness. Don't sleep anymore. Wake up and have breakfast, Princess. The male lead, with dark circles under his eyes, watched silently. He thought, I thought I would be executed for falsely reporting to the king. It seems I've gotten off easily. He said to the antagonist, let her sleep a little longer. My wife seems very tired from being out for so long. She replied, oh yes, I understand. He tiredly closed his eyes. The butler bowed. Well then, young master, would you like to have your meal first? It's likely to be a busy day with your schedule. Sitting at the dining table, he thought, it seems I'm here to confirm, because I thought something similar to the wedding night would happen. But it's better to think that way. He ate in silence. Eric lifted a piece of food to his mouth. Eating alone after such a long time. It's hard to swallow. Scene change. The dining table was overturned again, because that's what had to be done today, making the dining table messy. Tearing clothes, and the black-haired man undressed, pulling the maid's hair. Misa rubbed her reddened forehead, thinking, that completes half of today's quota. Today, the examination of the red-haired woman took longer, so I was delayed. But luckily, she suddenly became worried about the black-haired man from yesterday. But what if that man tells my secret to someone else? I don't know, but yesterday, he seemed very angry because of me. She clutched her skirt anxiously. Suppose that man tells my secret to the people here and in the Imperial Palace. What if they want to kick me out? She shook her head, trying to reassure herself. Even though he seemed very angry this time, I still believe that up until now, he's not that kind of person, right? She immediately ran off. But what if that man talks about me? In the room, Lady Telesa saw her and said cheerfully, Misa, did you sleep well? Misa was panting from running. Lady Telesa continued, no, Misa, I told you not to walk around alone without a maid. It's dangerous. Misa immediately threw herself into her arms, catching her off guard. Oh my. Lady Telesa stroked her head. Look at you. It seems you're still half asleep. Misa thought, relieved. Thank goodness. Lady Telesa is acting as usual. Oh my, yes. Lady Telesa turned to the butler. Never mind that. Please continue. The butler immediately resumed. Yes, my lady. He slowly reported, this time, it concerns the garden fence repairs. It seems we'll have to use different materials, so I've been looking into some options. Yes, he offered a suggestion. How about faux wood? 1 Karen and 2 Jerrys. For reference, that's the total needed for the garden. Misa listened intently. Faux wood. She thought of the mansion's garden, the material used for the fence. The flower garden at the Imperial Palace used imported wood from a southern island. 5 times the price, at 1 Karen and 10 Jerrys. She wondered if such imported goods were too expensive for this mansion. Aside from the Imperial Palace and Celia Palace. I've never been there. The butler continued. The Regenson Dairy Farm has recently started producing butter and cheese. He placed a dish of butter on the table. It's expensive, but the quality is excellent, so I purchased some. Lady Telesa took a piece and tasted it. The butler added, $1 of butter cost 20 paxo. Misa was surprised. 20 paxo for that much. Lady Telesa offered her a piece. Here, Misa, have some. As she ate, Misa thought, a maid told me a bag of flour cost 20 paxo. And this butter, small enough to fit in my palm, cost the same as a bag of flour. Thinking back to the previous night, she pondered. That black-haired man was worried about the food supply for the people of his territory. If money is tight, it would be better to buy flour. Lady Telesa watched her eat with a warm smile. Is it good, dear? It looks delicious. It is delicious. We should buy $5 of this for Misa. That would be 20 paxel, right? Yes. The butter we usually buy is 4 paxel. Misa calculated. If it's $5, that's 100 paxel, 1 Jerry's. The black-haired, red-eyed man and Lady Telesa, just being able to eat this makes me happy. Why? But no matter what, that affection won't be solely for me. There's no one in this world who would give so much to a princess, consider plague. Eric finally arrived to retrieve her. He extended his hand, calling, come here now. Misa clung tightly to Lady Telesa, refusing to go. Lady Telesa was puzzled. That's strange. She's not usually like this. Misa looked at her, whimpering as if to say, I don't want to go with that man. Help me. Eric scooped her up with one arm, holding her close. He whispered, Misa, it's best if you come with me quietly. She stared at him in astonishment. He continued, I haven't told anyone about what happened yesterday. Misa looked at him, speechless. Evening came again, and the table was laden with food. Eric asked, you can eat by yourself now, without help, right? Misa picked up the plate and knife, remaining silent. She lowered her head, thinking, I really don't like this man. Does it have to be this way? No matter what, the mansion staff always overdoes it. Even though they know I'll eat with my hands, they always set out a plate and knife. She looked at the utensils in her hands. It's been almost 10 years since I've held these. Her hands trembled as she cut a piece of meat. Misa brought the meat to her mouth with difficulty. It's been so long, my hands are weak. Eric watched her eat, commenting, see, you're doing great. Misa frowned. What's so great about this? She threw the fork onto the floor. He's such a strange man. Misa began eating with her hands again. Seeing this, Eric was completely perplexed. He asked cluelessly, what is it this time? Misa sucked on her finger, thinking, the maids will be here soon to clear the table. She She licked her forearm, a thoughtful look in her eyes. What will they think? Will they needlessly suspect something? Suddenly, Misa glanced over. Her husband, Eric Clatney's face was flushed for some unknown reason. He said, "All right, stop it." She looked at him quizzically. Seeing him stand up, she wondered, is he angry? Eric, his face still red, sat down next to her. Seeing his strange behavior, she thought to herself, it's not the first time I've eaten ravenously. I should be more careful how I joke around. Eric suddenly lifted her chin. Lift your head a little. He wiped her mouth with a napkin. How about this? After I wipe your mouth, I'll feed you. Misa instinctively pulled away. She frowned. He's so clueless. Eric gently took her hand. Give me your hand. Misa silently watched him, her cheeks slightly flushed. She looked down at the floor. A moment later, the servants began clearing the table. Eric waited outside. Inside the bathroom, water poured over Misa. She sat on the floor, shivering. So cold. Malika wondered aloud, why hasn't she caught a cold yet? If she could just rest for a few days. Misa glanced at her. So that's it. She gave a bitter smile. What's going on? Usually, other maids handle the bathing. Why is she personally here today? She grabbed Malika's hair and yanked it hard, causing her to cry out in pain. Malika's face contorted in anger, her teeth grinding. She grabbed Misa's shoulder and hair, cursing her under her breath. You crazy girl. Eric walked in from behind. What are you doing? He asked coldly, glaring at Malika. Malika stiffly turned around. Oh my, why are you here? As you can see, the princess suddenly acted up. Sometimes she gets seriously injured. There's really no other way. Misa sat to the side, scoffing. How ridiculous. Malika continued her charade. Anyway, could you please step outside for a moment? I need to bathe the princess. He stepped forward. Then I'll do it myself. Malika looked flustered. Huh? She gave a forced laugh. Oh dear, how embarrassing. How could you possibly do it yourself? And look at her. Sometimes she jumps in the water. Sometimes she jumps out. She tried to persuade him. You don't need to do such tedious work. But Eric immediately refused. Since I'm her husband, it's only right that I do it myself. Misa silently glanced at him. Malika continued. Bathing the princess is no easy task. She tried to make the process sound complicated to discourage Eric. After washing her hair with this, you have to cleanse her scalp with this essential oil. After that, you have to dry her body thoroughly and apply this cream as well. Misa thought scornfully, liar. I've only ever used a bar of soap. Back in the palace, I was bathed with laundry detergent. It's only here that I've been treated well. After listing a series of tasks she didn't actually perform, she asked, so you'll still bathe the princess? Eric firmly replied, yes. Go and rest. Malika left reluctantly, shooting a resentful glance back at them. But Eric was also surprised. Somehow, he had managed to get rid of her. Misa was taken aback. A crazy person bathing themselves. She shook her head. Nonsense. Eric gritted his teeth, his soft boy face and ears burning crimson. All right. Then wait a moment. He walked towards the bottles of essential oils. Why is he angry? Misa wondered. She stood up and slowly walked towards him. It won't be good if I keep making him angry. I need to try and get along with him. Seeing her approach, Eric seemed to shrink back, his large frame cowering slightly. He covered his flushed face with his hand. WH, what are you doing? His eyes suddenly widened. Misa thought, one day, this man might annul this marriage and reveal my secret to the royal palace. She let the towel wrapped around her fall. She turned, revealing her back covered in scars. And above all, her blue eyes glanced back at him. This is the first time I've seen this man's large and intimidating physique. If I could, I would have decided not to go against this man's wishes. Misa froze, her eyes filled with fear. The Emperor's brutal image flashed before her eyes. She instinctively stepped back, her feet hesitant. But it seems I've made a mistake. Her body seemed so small compared to Eric's. Even though this man is large and intimidating, he seems approachable to me. She looked up at him, his face slightly frightening at first. Misa closed her eyes and sank to the floor. Even here, my body isn't spared. I don't know why this man is angry this time, but what good would it do to find out? She wondered when she would finally have a valid reason. A hand suddenly touched her scars. Misa's eyes flew open in surprise. Eric's voice was filled with anguish. If these wounds are this deep, just how deep must they truly be? Who did this to you? Who did this to you? Misa was stunned. Could that be sympathy for me? A voice filled with deep sorrow came from this man's mouth. This is the first time I've heard such a voice from a man. She turned, thinking resolutely. Even if I'm anxious, I have to answer him. The Emperor, she said. Hearing her answer, Eric froze. You. His eyelids lowered. He held his head and sighed, looking truly bewildered. He took her wrist. We need to get you washed up and out of here quickly. You'll catch a cold. Misa inwardly relaxed. I thought he was angry. Eric rolled up his sleeves. If you feel uncomfortable, just tell me, he said hesitantly. This is my first time doing this, too. Misa looked at him, thinking this time he's suddenly looking at me like I'm pitiful. Seeing Eric pick up a bottle of essential oil, she thought, puzzled, washing me like a dog would be fine, too. Eric very gently washed her hair. Misa, acting unaccustomed, glanced at him carefully. Her eyes, slightly enjoying the sensation, drifted closed. So comfortable. Eric, washing her hair, suddenly stopped. He realized Misa was closing her eyes in enjoyment. She wondered, have I ever been bathed this comfortably before? Eric's ears turned red with embarrassment. Trying to remain composed, he said, well then, I'll scrub your body clean. Misa was dumbfounded. She furrowed her brows. So ticklish. She trembled, trying to suppress her laughter. Unable to hold it in any longer, she burst out laughing. Their eyes met. Misa thought, normally, a crazy woman wouldn't worry about someone scrubbing her body. Eric cleared his throat, his face flushed as he quickly averted his gaze, which Misa found rather amusing. This man's reactions are interesting. He stammered, I apologize. Misa's cheeks flushed too. She stared at him, thinking it's like a contagious disease. She glanced down at herself, feeling a bit embarrassed. Even I'm starting to feel strange. Later that evening, after bathing, Eric collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. Misa sat on the edge of the bed, watching him. He was completely drained. He reached out to her. Now come lie down for a bit. He took her wrist. You must be tired. Misa let him pull her down beside him. She thought, puzzled, I think he's the one who needs to rest, not me. She looked up at his gentle face in the pale moonlight. Misa hesitated. Even though I already know, I don't know anymore. She remembered what had happened before. Yesterday, he was so angry, he didn't even remember that I saved his life. Today, he's showing compassion just because he saw the scars on my body and because of the way I was wolfing down my food. She propped herself up, watching him. In the end, he still can't hide his true nature. He's showing his dislike. But she thought to herself, he's sleeping so soundly. She suddenly decided to do something. Even so, at this rate, Misa abruptly got out of bed. She opened the door and went out. It seems like he's a rare, good person. Inside, Eric opened his eyes. He heard a voice from beyond the slightly open door. Moving closer to the door, he heard Misa's voice. He listened silently, his hand on the doorknob. He heard her voice again. Eden. Before him stood Misa, muttering to herself in front of a mirror. Could you bring me some medicine for my headache? I'll be in my room. Food poisoning is rampant in the northern part of the capital. Eric was immediately stunned. Misa continued to repeat the words of others. The price of $5 medicine has increased to 7 herres and 2 barrels. He stood silently behind her, listening. How much is this? Misa was still speaking, then glanced over. She saw Eric standing there. Her eyes widened, repeating Lady Tellis's words, I am practicing. Don't say anything. The next morning, Malika and DL were standing by the bed again, examining the princess's body. DL complained, still haven't touched her. Misa's face showed clear discomfort. She bit her lip. This has happened several times already. Perhaps because I was embarrassed. That black-haired man woke up yesterday. Today it feels disgusting. Misa glanced outside. She remembered Eric's appearance last night. Anyway, he already saw my strange behavior when I pretended to be crazy. I don't care if other people criticize me, but thinking about someone seeing my true self and laughing, I don't understand why I'm bothered. You must think it's very strange, right? Malika stood with her arms crossed, speculating. Could it be because he saw her naked body? So he's disgusted. Makes sense. Who would want to have a child with someone like that? DL turned and said, in any case, we have to keep an eye on her during this time. Misa turned her head to look out the window. Naked body. She rubbed her feet together. Thinking back, I've noticed lately it's really been unblemished. No bruises at all. She glanced at the 2 scowling maids beside her. At this point, should she do something? It would be dangerous if she didn't cause a serious incident, something to make them frown. Misa cautiously walked down the hallway. She pretended to skip playfully in her shoes. She had just been thinking, but how could she get hurt? She didn't want to be too seriously injured. Her eyes landed on a nearby vase, or maybe break something valuable. After thinking it over, she refuted herself, shaking her head. No, that wouldn't do. It would be a bit much to do that, especially since she would have to spend a lot of money repairing the fence and the garden. She looked over at the stairs beside her. Indeed, the easiest way was to break some part of her body. Glancing at the fat maid, DL behind her, she made up her mind. The stairs. She lowered her eyes. As long as she controlled it well, she wouldn't be too badly hurt. That's it. Misa quickly ran towards them. Although it would be very painful, there was no other way. She closed her eyes tight, right from the first step, pretending to lose strength in her legs. Just as she was about to fall, Eric reached out. I feel uneasy. I can't just ignore this. Misa looked back in a panic. Eric easily caught her around the waist, preventing her from falling. Looking at his face, she wondered in confusion just when. He held her tightly. He then said, today, I will take care of my wife. You, DL, go and rest. Misa was angry, but could only whimper a few times, expressing her displeasure. The 2 of them sat in the greenhouse. Eric explained that all the birds in the greenhouse had been moved elsewhere, so there was nothing to worry about. He turned to her and asked, is it true that you hate birds? Misa nervously fiddled with her fingers. Eric looked at her quizzically. What's wrong? Is there a reason? She mumbled, birds eat. Eric repeated, birds eat. He He didn't understand what she meant, so he asked again, "What do you mean?" Misa frowned in dissatisfaction. He had brought her here without her permission. She moved away from Eric. He continued to ask, "But when you speak, is there something that bothers you?" Misa was annoyed. Why did he keep bothering her? Seeing that she didn't say anything, Eric reassured her, "It's okay. No one will come here, so feel free to talk." She pursed her lips and glanced away. "That's not it." Eric looked at her thoughtfully. Suddenly, his words made her freeze. "Or do you feel uncomfortable talking?" Misa thought resentfully, "I'm good at talking in my head." But when it came to actually speaking, Eric reached out. "Otherwise," he said slowly, "it's been a long time since you've talked to anyone. If you're not used to arranging the words in your head." Misa looked up at him. "I didn't think that deeply about it. I don't know how to explain it either." But this man seemed to be right. Eric voiced his guess. "So you're very good at repeating what someone else has said. If you can, try speaking instead of nodding. However, it seems you can also answer briefly." Misa looked up. She stared at his face. "What should I say? Every time I see that serious face, even though I'm not interested, I feel like I have to answer anything." She sighed and stammered, "Oh, okay." As soon as she spoke, she immediately covered her mouth. Misa lowered her head. Her face flushed with embarrassment. "My voice sounds so strange." Her face was now as red as a tomato. She wondered why. Eric reassured her, saying if she kept speaking, she'd improve. He took her wrist. "If not, you could do what I do for a moment." "Okay." Her eyes widened in surprise. Eric placed her hand on his throat. "A person's larynx is usually here," he said. "Can you feel it?" Misa seemed confused. He made a few sounds and explained, and the position of the larynx changes depending on the pitch. Like when we don't make sound. This is our natural voice. It's much more comfortable, right? He released her hand. "Someone taught me this when my voice was changing. Do you want to try it now?" Misa wondered about the voice changing, but she still placed her hand on her throat. She followed Eric, making sounds to feel the movement of her larynx. She glanced up at Eric, her eyes bright. He chuckled and asked, "Can you feel it?" Seeing her look up at him, he continued, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" "Anything at all." She asked, "What is a changing voice?" Eric looked surprised. "A changing voice." He chuckled, clutching his stomach, which made Misa beside him pout. "Why are you laughing?" He tried to stop laughing to speak to her. Is this the first question you've asked me?" Despite this, since it was his wife asking, he cleared his throat and answered. "Everyone's voice changes at a certain age, and that's called a changing voice. Is this the first time you've heard of it?" He asked further, "Do you have any other questions? Or is there anything you want to say or need?" Misa's small hand clutched her dress. "There's something urgent." She looked up at him. Then she repeated the fat, made DL's words. "We still haven't touched. It's so boring." But Eric didn't understand and asked back, "What do you mean?" Misa frowned, not understanding why he didn't get it. Seeing that words weren't working, she used actions, gesturing towards Eric. "Spreading legs. Like this." Eric, a complete novice, blushed crimson at her gesture. No. He quickly pulled her knees together, even his knuckles turning red. "I understand." Misa looked at him with satisfaction, while he stammered, Don't do that again." But she, mortified by his wife, his ears burning, he said, "We need some time." Misa wondered what this man believed in to be so nonchalant. Eric spoke seriously. "First, shouldn't we get closer? Then we can quickly resolve the inconveniences you've mentioned." Misa was bewildered. What did he mean? Eric stood up beside her. Well then, he extended his hand. "Let me take you on a tour of the greenhouse." Misa thought to herself. The two walked together in the greenhouse. She was secretly pleased. Tonight, she wouldn't be dragged before the emperor. Along the way, Misa happily pointed things out, and Eric diligently explained each flower and plant in the garden to her. He finally voiced his question. "So, you don't find it uncomfortable to walk around?" Misa stopped and looked at him with a sly smile. Eric, seeing her expression, understood. "Oh no, even I was fooled." Eric listened to him, realizing he'd been tricked all along. Misa nodded proudly. "Of course. It's a gait I perfected after a lot of effort." Eric asked, "How did you manage it?" Misa found it difficult to explain. Well, she decided, "I'll just show you." She concentrated on her thighs and calves. "No, this won't work. I can't talk much, so I don't really need to." She held out her hand towards him. Eric looked surprised. "You want me to carry you? Why didn't you just say so?" He immediately picked her up, his voice tinged with praise. "You've been walking around more than usual today." Misa didn't reply, but her cheeks flushed pink. She closed her eyes. Thank goodness she let Eric carry her out of the garden. This man was better than she thought. She felt this kindness might last a long time. The day before the wedding night, the holy woman kept rambling on about how they would kiss and their bodies would become one. Misa lay on the ground, listening silently. She remembered the holy woman reading to her about the wedding night proceedings. The kiss was a formality, so the wedding night process wasn't read with any particular emphasis. She didn't know why, but she felt strange about it. She even felt a pain down below. She just thought it was all very bothersome. But now, for her, it was one of the important ways to secure this marriage. If it could happen immediately, so much the better. She looked at Eric, the soft boy, quietly eating his meal. Since their conversation a few days ago, he'd been making excuses to postpone it. Noticing her gaze, Eric asked, "Do you want to say something?" Misa frowned, thinking, "Even now, my life depends on the king. Why does it feel like I'm the only one anxious?" She asked directly, "When are we going to do it?" Eric's movement stopped. Misa pursed her lips in annoyance. As I thought, the reason this man keeps delaying the wedding night, is it to annul the marriage? Her mood darkened with negative thoughts. All the kindness he'd shown was a lie. What if he was stalling, planning to send her away? He saw her sitting there, lost in thought, and called out, "Misa, Misa." As if she hadn't heard him, she clutched her pillow tightly. Could it be? Her eyes reddened. Every time people here were kind to her, these anxious thoughts surfaced hundreds of times a day. Receiving no response, Eric stood up abruptly and called, "Misa." Misa continued to drift in her thoughts. The wedding night had to happen as soon as possible. She wanted to solidify this marriage. She really liked living here now. Here, sometimes she felt like she was back in that time. Eric approached her, calling Misa. "Misa." He placed a hand on her shoulder and called out louder, startling her. "Misa," he asked with concern, "are you feeling unwell? I called you so many times." She lowered her head without answering. She echoed Malika's words, "That's right. Who would want to have children with someone like that?" Eric was shocked. What did you say?" He urgently gripped her shoulders. Who would dare say such a thing? Who? Before she could answer, he guessed. That sharp voice. It was Malika, wasn't it? I understand. He sat down heavily beside her. Huh, so that's what you meant. He paused for a moment before continuing. As I said before, he turned to her. We still don't know anything about each other. Misa was disgruntled again. She put the pillow down, this time mimicking Eric's voice. First of all, shouldn't you and I get closer? She looked up at him. Then we can quickly resolve the inconveniences that I mentioned. Eric realized something. That's why you listened so calmly that day. He sighed. You did listen to a bit of what I said. Are you asking me to do it right now? He leaned closer to her. You seem to really like the idea. Eric refused, turning his head away. But I also need time to prepare myself mentally, because it's not something that can be done immediately. He looked up, contemplating what to do. Let's talk tonight. Misa pouted strangely. She glanced at him furtively. It's only our first time and already. Eric lit the candle at the head of the bed as he spoke. There are a lot of complicated things going on right now. The maids from the Imperial Palace following you, for example. His voice was sincere. In any case, you want a relationship. I want to know more about you. Eric took Misa's hand. He smiled gently. Anything is fine. So even if it's just a little each night, please tell me. If that's the case, then I'll cooperate little by little. Let's start from the roots. He asked his first question. What's your favorite food? Misa was silent for a moment, then replied, meat. Eric was surprised. Really? That's unexpected. He voiced his thoughts. I thought you'd say cake. Misa added, I like fruit and vegetables too. Eric recounted, on the battlefield, it's always just dried food. Their eyes met. Eric asked again, don't you feel stifled, always being in the mansion? She wondered what he meant. Feel stifled being in the mansion. I always live like this. She closed her eyes. Then, she used Lady Tellis's words to express her thoughts. Eric, stop it. He was taken aback. This time it's my mother. He laughed, clutching his stomach. Misa thought he laughed a lot. He looked at her cheerfully. I'm so glad you call me by my name. Say it again. My name. Misa was surprised by his request. It's not difficult, she said again, stunning him. Eric. He froze for a moment, then smiled faintly. He caressed her cheek, praising her. Good. Your voice sounds lovely. Misa was surprised to hear him say that. Well, you did respond gently. He smiled. I should also show some sincerity. Eric leaned down and kissed her forehead. Misa was stunned, her cheeks flushing. Eric also looked at her with tender eyes. For the first time. Next time, tell me more about yourself. Misa rubbed her forehead. This much is enough. Eric's thoughts. I've developed an intense curiosity about someone ever since I was little. That stubbornness and tenacity completely fooled many people. Even I, someone who has interacted with many injured people, was deceived by that gait. He looked at Misa sleeping peacefully beside him. It's surprising how thoroughly she's hidden it until now. He wondered, what on earth is that little head thinking? Then Eric lay down next to her. So curious. She's the only one who makes me curious. I really want to know. Eric watched her for a moment longer. Then he closed his eyes and fell asleep. The next morning, there was a commotion again. This way, young master. His footsteps were hurried as he rushed in after receiving the notification. Lady Tellisa angrily shouted, if you're here to supervise, then supervise. Can't you even do that much? Malika and DL bowed their heads, sweating profusely. Misa lay motionless, covered in injuries. The situation was dire. Eric was stunned, his eyes wide with disbelief. It was truly chaotic. Malika and DL, standing before the princess's bed, said, "Nothing unusual happened yesterday." Looking at the wrinkles on the bed sheets, it seems they didn't even touch each other. Ma. Recalling Misa's previous frantic state, she quickly dismissed her thoughts. "No, it's nothing. Nothing at all." DL looked at her questioningly. "Did you see that person today?" She asked Malika. "No," she replied. "Tomorrow. What's Misa worried about?" DL pulled her up. "Oh dear, what is she planning to bring this time?" Misa had a bad feeling. She pursed her lips. "What is that person bringing?" 15 disorders. Obsessive-compulsive tendencies accumulated over the years are sending a dangerous signal. Malika clicked her tongue in annoyance. After 3 kingdom pillars, it's still the same. DL also expressed her dissatisfaction. "How long do we have to stay here? I thought it wouldn't take much time." Misa worried, "If I don't do something today, I might be suspected." She looked up with a crazed glint in her eyes. 2 maids walked cheerfully down the hallway. "I hope the young mistress likes this." A commotion could be heard in the distance. One maid turned to the other and asked, "Did you hear a strange sound just now?" A strange sound. They seemed hesitant. It didn't sound like a scream. Suddenly, a scream. Misa, at the end of the hallway, came running towards them, screaming. She wasn't even properly dressed. She rushed past the 2 maids. The 2 maids stared after her. That was clearly the young mistress. Ignoring their calls of young mistress. Young mistress. From behind, she continued to run. "This time, I can't hesitate. Those 2 maids are definitely witnesses." Misa looked left and right, scanning her surroundings. Running at full speed, she headed straight for the stairs. She dashed down, surprising the maids. Someone was still chasing her. "No good. I need another suitable place." Spotting another location, she ran towards it. Misa stopped. Her target was the balcony. She thought with satisfaction, "Good. No one's here." She resolutely climbed up, calculating. The railing below will act as a cushion. Misa jumped, landing in the flower bed below. She let out a crazed laugh. A scream echoed. She had successfully fallen from the balcony as planned. Back in the present, Countess Clatney said angrily, "Is it really that difficult to take care of her and prevent injuries in such a short time?" This time, she directly scolded Malika and DL. "You do nothing all day but bathe and change clothes." Eric approached from behind. "Mother," she looked up. "Eric, you're back." He looked at Malika and DL, startling them. They hurriedly explained, It was like this." Eric placed his hand on Misa's forehead. She pursed her lips. There was something in the air. Eric's gaze held clear distress as he looked at her. She wondered, "It seems too serious." He turned and ordered Genra, "Prepare for treatment." She quickly replied, "Yes, I understand." Eric added, "From now on, you should assign one of our maids to Misa." "Yes," he said to Eden. "Eden, you and Malika should go to the Imperial Palace now. An incident has occurred in the mansion, so report it to the Emperor in return." Eden quickly replied, "Yes." After giving his instructions, he ordered, "All right, everyone leave." Eden bowed, understood. Eric remained silent. From behind him, Lady Tellis's voice rang out. To think that the schemes of such incompetent people would be so difficult to control. She laughed venomously. Those people, their limbs need to be ground to dust before they come to their senses, don't they? Eric glanced back. This time is no different. It's the same thing over and over again. It was like Misa was reflecting the image of Rosie, his younger sister. Last spring, on Rosie's 10th birthday, she was alone in the forest without her nanny. She was hit by a drunk man on horseback. The day Rosie died, his mother completely lost her mind. The stable hand who had handed over the horse. Of course, the family of the one who caused the incident. Even the old and the young. His mother had given them all the same punishment. His father had criticized her excessive actions. From then on, his father and mother had become completely estranged. And today, his mother was about to lose her mind just like that day. Eric called out to his mother, taking a gamble. "Should we separate mother from this matter now?" He looked at her and spoke firmly. "That's a matter for my wife and child. I'll handle it myself." She widened her eyes in surprise. Eric worried, wondering how far his mother's rage would go. Gina, after finishing her examination, stood up and reported, according to the results, it seems the young mistress only suffered a minor wrist sprain. She scratched her head. It's been treated, and there shouldn't be any difficulty with movement. There are no other serious injuries. Lady Tellisa finally sighed in relief. Thank goodness. That's a relief. Contrary to Eric's worries, she didn't get angry, but stood up. "You're right. I think I should go inside and relax for a bit." She bent down and looked at Misa. "I hope you'll do well." Her eyes were hollow with worry. She turned to leave the room. "Then I'll leave the rest to you. Get plenty of rest." Seeing Lady Tellisa leave, Gina also said, "Then I'll excuse myself." Just as she was about to leave, he called her back. "Wait a moment. You said there were no other serious injuries." His expression darkened. "Are you sure?" Faced with his demeanor, she had to tell the truth. Actually, The young mistress has many deep wounds. I apologize for not telling you, but they're old wounds, so I can't treat them. Hearing a reasonable answer, his face relaxed. I see, so that's it. Gina hurriedly added, but I absolutely have no intention of speaking about this anywhere. As you know, I've never carelessly divulged such confidential matters. I've never misspoken due to intoxication. Eric asked, you don't have any work at the moment, do you? She waved her hand. Everyone understood that this was not a question, but an order. Eric continued, start working tomorrow morning. Yes, she replied, still bewildered as he continued. I'll tell Eden. She asked back, yes, starting tomorrow. Isn't that sudden? No, he replied, dismissing her. I expect you to understand. Now go. She stammered, see Commander. Commander. The door closed, leaving the room in silence. He turned to Misa. I know you're not asleep. What's the reason? Startled, Misa flinched. Her bandaged arm trembled. He gently asked, what is it? Her hands clutched the blanket tightly. Eric waited silently for a response. When none came, he sighed. He sat down beside her, trying to reassure her. Misa, it's all right. Tell me, why did you cause such a commotion today? She turned away. After a moment, she managed to force out, there's a reason. He asked, tell me what it is. She struggled again, saying it's hard to say. Eric massaged his temples wearily. Misa, he turned to her. You absolutely must not hurt yourself. Break things, anything else, but not yourself. Hearing his reproach, she felt guilty. Unable to meet his gaze, she just mumbled in agreement. Suddenly, he became agitated. Misa, I'm not saying you can't do anything. You can do anything, just don't get hurt. Do you understand? His eyes locked onto hers, demanding a commitment. Promise me right now, you won't hurt yourself. She huddled deeper under the covers. I promise, she whispered. Finally, Eric relaxed. Good, now rest. If you're hungry, just call me. Under the covers, Misa peeked at him. She stared, making him curious. Do you have something to say? He asked. She asked, the woman from earlier, my maid. He smiled. Are you curious? Well, I hope you're satisfied. She's the apprentice of a renowned physician, apparently. Quite skilled in treating injuries. He saw her turn her head to listen and sighed in relief. Thank goodness. She's stronger than she looks, too. Managed to catch a few wolves. And loyal. Misa asked how loyal. He replied, fiercely. She's not someone who can be bribed. He watched her expression as he spoke. Never been captured or tortured. However, Misa didn't react. He continued, as a precaution, it's best to keep up the act for now. He reminded her, do you remember Run at the entrance the day you arrived at the palace? I'm thinking of assigning Run to guard the second floor from now on. Worried she might not remember, he added, Ren, the knight who uses their left hand, lost 2 fingers to torture. He confessed, of all the people I know, Ren is the most trustworthy. I haven't even told Ren about you. You don't need to worry too much. Misa fiddled with her fingers, listening until he said, since you're injured, I'll have to put my work aside for a while. Her face suddenly brightened with joy. But Eric thought to himself, is it because I'm the only one who knows her secret? He stroked her hair. I'll only be gone tomorrow morning, and I'll be back as soon as I've dealt with this urgent matter. He chuckled softly. Misa shows so many different sides of herself around me without even realizing it. He watched her expression, this current look of excitement. Suddenly, Misa sat bolt upright. She innocently moved closer and asked, so there's lots of time to chat. He answered, right, but couldn't tear his eyes away from her expectant gaze. Misa tugged at his sleeve. If we get closer, be prepared. Should we do it now? Or tomorrow? He looked bewildered. What are you talking about? Even her embarrassing and unexpected actions. What was that outburst? What can you possibly do, injured like this? Misa flinched, startled, while Eric seemed oddly amused. Despite her annoyance, she couldn't look away. He turned away abruptly, scolding her like a child. Don't even think about it until you're fully healed. He paused, realizing something. I've become bound by rules and habits. He looked at Misa, sitting still, her face flushed. This woman was so different. Why are you in such a rush? He asked. She lowered her head, struggling to find the words. After a moment, she echoed the Emperor's words. You haven't even touched the princess, yet you readily accepted the marriage proposal. Then, she repeated Ambrich's words. In terms of enjoyment, it's better to dispose of things quickly. He's about to marry Lacan Crispin, so something's bound to happen. Eric couldn't hide his shock. He covered his face, hesitant. Have I been hiding my anger all this time? It seemed Ambrich's nonsense had gotten to her. He grasped Misa's shoulders. I have no intention of canceling this marriage. Absolutely not. His eyes were firm. We still have a lifetime ahead of us. We don't know each other well enough yet, so there's no need to rush. Seeing Misa's silence, he continued, don't entertain any strange thoughts right now. His voice became gentler. If you have any questions or worries, just ask. There's nothing I can't answer. He spoke close to her ear. Come to think of it, whenever you had the time, you'd sit on my lap and look through all the documents. Yes, I've shown you all my secrets. What is there left to hide? Eric looked at her and gently pushed her down onto the bed. Rest for now. If you can't sleep, I'll call a maid. Seeing her bewildered expression, he asked, what's wrong? Weren't you always playing in the maid's workroom? It seemed like you were having fun. She denied it. Not all. He looked puzzled. Not all. She explained why she frequented the maid's workroom. The kitchen and laundry room are always busy and noisy. The workroom is the only quiet place. The maids chat constantly, and I listen to everything. She mimicked their voices. The princess only ever plays in the maid's quarters at Celia Palace. He replied, all right, I understand. Eric asked, so you were gathering information in the maid's workroom. Do you do that in the Imperial Palace too? Misa exclaimed proudly, exactly, excitedly. She repeated snippets of conversations. I heard how someone got replaced. How much head Maid Namia received from Lady Malika. I know everything. Eric himself was impressed. Amazing. Misa continued, you know what else? Eden doesn't like the silver-haired butler. She imitated the maids again. Don't say things you don't know. Head maid Eden is scary. She likes fierce men. Eric was taken aback. Fierce. Wait. The butler likes Eden. He's already smitten. Misa giggled. She went on, planning to marry a strong butler. The head maid is still single, isn't she? Eric was astonished. He pondered, genuinely surprised. Every action during this time. It all had a purpose, perhaps. Misa looked at him, bewildered. He lay down beside her. I want to talk to you more closely, Misa. Her eyes sparkled. What will we do today? I'm asking why Lady Malika gave money to the head maid, Namari. Even if you don't answer, I'll continue. It seems something happened, or was it because you wanted to take care of Misa? Misa remained silent. He coaxed her, you have to say something. We can only be close if you're comfortable. Ignoring him, Misa turned away. She said curtly, 3 pillars. Eric seemed confused. She explained, see you tomorrow. Malika, 3 pillars of the kingdom. If it's the 3 pillars of the kingdom, what does that mean? It includes Clatney, Salachis, and Crispin. King Salachis' foreign relatives were annihilated a few years ago and are now in an anonymous situation. If so, I remember the meeting with Crispin's daughter. I noticed someone watching us before. That person was none other than Malika. Meeting with Lady Malika, that it's very likely Crispin. I should send people to both sides to investigate what's going on. Misa blinked. But if a man is trying to do something meaningless. Before finishing her thought, Eric kissed her cheek. Her eyes widened in surprise. He chuckled. That's in response to your answer. The two gazed at each other affectionately. Misa felt bewildered. If that's the case, what should I do? The next morning, as soon as Eric appeared, he heard a commotion. What do you mean? A girl gritted her teeth, standing before Malika. So now, that girl is none other than Gina. She fumed. You mean to say, I brought something that could harm the young mistress. Is that right? Malika remained defiant. I don't know. How could you know if the ointment was poisonous and still dare to apply it to the princess? Gina was astonished. What? Where are we right now? Infuriated, she scooped up a dollop of the ointment and shoved it in her mouth, swallowing it without hesitation. Gina yelled, see, nothing happened, right? Her boldness impressed even Eric. He scolded Malika, who was speechless. If you're so worried, Lady Malika, why don't you try some too? Witnessing the maid's strength, Eric smiled in satisfaction. He slowly approached Misa. Seeing Misa gnawing on the blanket, he called out, my lady. Eric gently brushed her golden hair. I'll be back before lunch. I'll return soon, so please rest. The three arguing fell silent. Eric left, not forgetting to instruct, take good care of my wife. Outside, he pondered. Actually, I still can't understand Misa's actions yesterday. He wondered, why did she go so far as to injure herself? Of course, it was an opportunity to pressure the head maid. Could it be that Misa did it on purpose? To understand Misa's true intentions, that the top priority is to eliminate the surveillance. And from then on, step by step, his face darkened with calculation. Scene change. Amberich exclaimed in disgust, what? You wanted to train the knights? Eric replied, that's right. I want you to temporarily take charge. Amberich was dissatisfied. Why did you decide this on your own? He searched for a reason to protest. I have so much to do, but it wasn't accepted. Besides meeting with girls, what else do you have to do? He argued. Well, Eric cut him off. All right, start tomorrow. After Amberich was thrown out. First, until Misa fully recovers, Amberich will temporarily be in charge of the knight's training. And Conran, inside the reporting room. Commander, I've assigned people to watch Lady Malika and Crispin, as you instructed. Is that so? Good work. The most skilled knights were dispatched to monitor both sides. Call Eden here. Don't let mother know. A knock came from outside. Enter. Eden entered. What is it? Someone told me to come discreetly. Thanks to you. Dismissing those two maids wasn't difficult. Yesterday, after going to the Imperial Palace with Lady Malika and reporting, she carefully brought a copy of the related report from the palace. Fortunately, it seems conveying the truth was successful. His tone suddenly shifted, demanding her attention. But if their replacements are the same, it's pointless. He continued, "That's why I need your help, Eden." Eden looked bewildered. "My help? If you want to get acquainted with the maids in the Imperial Palace, you're more suited than I am, having lived on the battlefield for 12 years. But during that time, she'll stay in the capital, socializing with other families and doing things like gathering information." Eden protested, "Wouldn't it be better if you did it yourself?" Eric shook his head. "I've already received Mother's permission to borrow you. However, I expect what you hear won't reach Mother's ears." Understood. Eric got straight to the point. Lady Malika bribed head, made Namri before. "First, I want to find out about this. Who could the intermediary be?" Eden pondered. It's difficult to directly contact the headmaid. I heard that the headmaid's right hand, Viscountess Minor, is having trouble with her brother-in-law." Eric listened intently as Eden suggested a way to obtain information. "If we can resolve that, even if it's a marital issue, she'll likely talk." The scene changed. Eric opened a door and stepped inside. "I'm home." His eyes widened in surprise. Kendra was now easily watching over Misa, who was sitting on the floor, drawing. "What are you doing?" Kendra smiled brightly. "Music or plays are good for mental illness, but the only thing she can do in her bedroom right now is draw." Eric hesitated. "I've never heard or seen anyone say that." Misa furrowed her brow. "It's not about who said it. I heard the young miss has been through a lot. It's best for someone who has bottled up their emotions to release them." Misa smiled, and Eric's expression softened as he smiled back. He knelt down on one knee and lifted her face. "I'll read to you later. I bet you slept well." Gina agreed. "That's good," she exclaimed. "If it's a book, then a children's book," before being interrupted. Eric looked at Misa, smiling. Gina cheerfully started to say, "I'll give," but was cut off by Eric. "That's enough for today." Gina looked surprised. "Yes." Eric said, "Didn't you say you were busy? Come back tomorrow morning." Gina stammered, still working." Working? Eric asked, "Is there anything else you want to say?" She immediately went outside. "Oh, no, of course not. Yes, see you tomorrow." Lena was standing outside. She grumbled under her breath, frustrated. "Honestly, how can they treat me like this? The pay is the same, but I have to be both a doctor and a maid. Since the war is over, I thought I wouldn't have to fulfill my duties as a doctor anymore. If that's the case, I'll just treat the villagers. Why am I here?" Conran glanced at her, receiving pay from both roles. "Eric," she exclaimed, suddenly cheerful. "Both? Well, then there's nothing more to say." Eric appeared abruptly from behind. "No," he asked, his eyes sharp. "Where are the clothes to change into?" Gina realized. "Oh, right, you need to bathe too." He repeated, "No, where are the clothes to change into?" She replied, "Under the shelf." After a curt thanks, he slammed the door shut. She stood there dumbfounded. Gina turned to Conran and asked, "Isn't he used to only saying what needs to be said?" He replied, "Anyone who's a commander is like that. Why the sudden change?" She frowned. No, that's not what I mean. What is this called? No matter what, he should greet the lady properly." Conran looked puzzled. "Properly?" She added, "No, that is, the commander shouldn't speak so casually to the lady. The way the commander looks at the lady is strange." She scratched her head. No, it's good if they get along. I was being too presumptuous." Conran chimed in, "I've never witnessed the commander interacting with a lady, so I wouldn't know. He's always been strict with etiquette, and even though his way of speaking is blunt, he's never been cruel to us." She smiled. "As long as you don't hide anything from the commander." Inside, Eric and Misa stared at each other. "All right," Eric said. He values loyalty above all else. While checking the bathwater, he asked, "Was drawing fun?" Suddenly, Misa said, "Not a children's story." He asked, surprised, "What?" She clutched her skirt and walked closer. "Isn't that like adults telling stories?" Her blue eyes fixed on him, waiting for an answer. Eric replied, "Actually, reading books helps with conversation. I've had someone bring novels. There's a lot of content to discuss." Misa seemed hesitant. She repeated, "Because I lack basic knowledge, I can't converse." Understanding her meaning, he smiled. "I know. I'll have someone bring books on basic knowledge." He extended his hand. "Now, shall we go over there? Everything's ready for your bath." Misa stared at him, speechless. She turned away. Eric was surprised. "Misa," she said, embarrassed. "It's embarrassing." Eric's face showed confusion. "Embarrassing? You're uncomfortable?" He asked, puzzled. "My face is embarrassing. What do you mean?" She replied, "When Eric bathes me, your face will turn red." "Why are you embarrassed?" She pointed. "I want to bathe myself." "Eric, go outside." He hesitated, but your hand is injured. If you do it yourself. Misa remained firm. He relented. All right then, I'll wash your hair and your wound before I leave. He slowly approached. This is okay, right? She turned back, silent, her face flushed with embarrassment. Eric, sitting behind her, said, thinking back, I didn't respond well. He gently stroked her hand. From now on, even if it's just a simple word, speak up. Not because practice makes perfect. Misa glanced away, embarrassed. You should go now, she said, feigning concern. Are you all right? He replied, go on, I'm fine. You should go now. Eric's cheeks flushed as he exhaled. All right, I understand. He turned and headed for the door, adding, if you need anything, just call me. He waited outside the door. A loud noise from within startled him, and he quickly turned back. After confirming everything was all right inside, he chuckled softly. Misa emerged wrapped in a towel, a grimace on her face. He asked, are you done bathing? She frowned. Isn't Gina supposed to bathe me tomorrow? He readily agreed. Starting tomorrow, let's do that. Eric smiled to himself. She's put her nightgown on backward. Misa, he called out, come here. You need to dry yourself properly. She slowly approached him. Once finished, they sat on the bed. Eric took her hand. How was your morning? He asked. She replied, Gina was very helpful. He sighed in relief. That's good. He looked at her fingers. Your fingertips are wrinkled from the bath, he observed. First of all, did you experience any discomfort? She replied, no. He continued, you said you liked meat before, so I informed the kitchen. But why were you so thin before? Misa recalled the past and mimicked a maid's voice. Oh dear, why bother with food? Eric immediately corrected her. Misa continued, anyway, instead of putting it in my mouth, it's better to apply it to my body. So, it's better to leave it for the grass. He asked in a low voice were Malika and DL originally your maids. Yes, she confirmed. Originally, at 5 o'clock, it was 2. His expression darkened. I see. Their attitude seems rather insolent. Misa froze, then lunged forward and grabbed his hand. If they're both injured, Berman will know. Eric immediately recognized the name. It was the name the king used before his ascension. Misa looked at him anxiously. He remained silent, lost in thought. He complimented her. You're speaking more fluently these past few days. Misa stammered, it was supposed to be better, but I haven't been able to practice. He asked, why haven't you been able to practice? Misa replied, that. I was planning to practice at night, but when I woke up, Eric was holding me down on the bed, so I couldn't practice. His cheeks flushed crimson. I was afraid you'd leave the room without me knowing. He fumbled. From now on, feel free to. Misa raised an eyebrow. What was that? Lure here. Eric looked bewildered. Huh. He kissed her forehead. Immediately after, he asked about the information. Is it okay if I ask? No matter what you say, I'm sure I'll get the price. She rubbed her forehead. Information. Around that time, Misa started to get used to things. What is it? The number of questions also increased. Surprisingly, Misa frequently asked questions. Because she didn't know the basics, she often tugged on his sleeve and asked, what's a deceiver? What happens if you get typhoid fever? Sometimes there were difficult questions to answer. For example, how do women your age usually live? What do other people think about the kingdom? The more they talked, the more natural her speech became. During meals, she also asked, some people die from cutting their wrists, and some people don't die even if they cut their wrists completely. Why do people die from small cuts but live from large ones? She giggled and told him, I already knew all that. That's what I was thinking. Oh, she offered her cheek. I answered, so kiss me now. Eric kissed her cheek. From now on, you can speak more casually. She looked bewildered. Huh, what do you mean? I don't understand. We're married now. Shouldn't we drop the formalities? But she still didn't get it. Pointing at him, she said, royalty and the son of the Grady family. Even if it's just a count, I still have to use formal language. He just laughed, covering his face. What can I do? Ever since marrying me, you've become like a noble yourself. And indeed, he was teasing her more and more. Why? She asked. It's called marrying up, he replied. She finally understood. He thought her eyes widening. As if not wanting to miss a word, he said, we're adorable. He kissed her finger. Are you disappointed? No, I'm not disappointed, she denied, a genuine smile gracing her lips. It's wonderful here, so being like a noble is fine. Eric thought to himself, even that little mouth is being careful. With every word, he pressed her hand to his face. That's a relief. I wonder why I didn't know at first. She tucked his hair behind his ear. Because Eric is so kind, I saved you. What do you mean? He asked. She said innocently, I saved you. Otherwise, Eric would have committed treason. He stared at her, this beautiful and lovely wife. If they hadn't married, he would have faced danger. A triumphant look, flushed cheeks, and a chattering mouth. Whatever, he said, take her hand. So that's how it is. I'll live with gratitude, and more than anything. Misa's lips moved. It's good that you know. I'm truly happy I married you, he said, realizing what made his heart flutter. It's those triumphant expressions in every moment. Misa, he said, their hands intertwined. This is truly lovely. I can't take my eyes off her. Misa watched, bewildered, as he leaned closer. Their faces were inches apart. Close your eyes. He caressed her lips. Come on. She obediently closed her eyes. He slowly lowered his head. Your lips are so stiff. Relax. Their lips finally met. They fell into a deep kiss. Eric pressed her hand down. Misa clutched his shirt. This is strange, she wondered as they kissed. There's nothing to eat in his mouth. Why put that in someone else's mouth? They finally broke apart. Eric gazed at her, still lost in the moment. Her face flushed crimson. He chuckled. Then he placed a kiss on her forehead and then her cheek. Does it feel strange? He asked, kissing her again, then trailing kisses down her slender neck. Misa's eyes widened. She pushed him away. Wait a minute. No, not like this. Flustered, she asked, Do you know what you're doing? Have you ever done this before? Her gaze was firm. You haven't, have you? This isn't right. She placed a hand on his chest, explaining this part, the upper body isn't involved at all. Do you understand? I learned from the divine officer, so I know very well. So do what I say. No, he said, kissing the back of her hand. Then what you just said, that I asked to make that painful process less painful. She stammered. No, that IT seems I learned it wrong somewhere. Eric continued to close the distance between them. At this rate, nothing will get done. He kissed her again. I only know how to do this. She grabbed his chin and pushed him away. Don't be so stubborn. She closed her eyes. It was all to save Eric. He asked in bewilderment for me. He whispered into her hand, touched by her compassion. So, my stay here will be longer. I don't want to cause you any pain. She pushed him away. It's not like that. Eric's way of speaking was confusing. He replied, Sometimes I feel the same way about you, my lady. He leaned closer. I'm glad we're getting to know each other. Misa urged, Don't do that. Hurry up. He responded, It would be very helpful if you didn't say anything right now. The next morning, Malika and DL stared at her. A little vague, isn't it? Yeah, did it happen or not? Misa, with a mark on her shoulder, sat up, yawning. They wondered, let's see, how did this suddenly happen? She said in disappointment, in the end. That man just kissed, all over me pointlessly, all day yesterday. DL asked, Did your mood change having a personal maid? She smiled foolishly, but inwardly wondered, a personal maid. I can't believe it. Who would have guessed that man knew nothing about sexual relations? Malika whispered, Oh my, the personal maid has arrived. Misa was still lost in thought. If I don't continue this way, it'll be a real headache later. Gina said, My lady, it's a good thing there's an extra set of clothes to change into today. She approached with the dress. I was so worried because yesterday's change of clothes hadn't dried yet. Suddenly, she noticed the red marks on Misa. She moved closer for a better look, wondering, what's this? It looks like eczema. Realizing what it was, her face flushed. She exclaimed in embarrassment, Eric. Aaron said it seems Malika won't be easily replaced. He asked why. I thought there was more to it. Aaron bowed his head. I thought I'd be suspected if I dug any deeper, so I stopped there. Eric was dubious. Strange, he mused. It seems she doesn't have any special abilities after all. According to what Eden had learned recently, Malika had a terrible habit of stealing. Even in the Imperial Palace, she was caught red-handed stealing valuables. She bribed the head, made to keep her position, though with difficulty. Still, there's no need to replace her. Eden placed a bundle of documents on the table. Anyway, please refer to Malika's case. Viscountess Manor gave gifts to the head maid to gain her trust. Sure enough, the head maid was very greedy, so things were much easier. This is a list of the jewelry Viscountess Manor gave to the head maid. He picked up the documents. This was hard work, Eden. He added, and also, seeing her hesitate, he prompted, Go on. Eden clutched her ear. Eric looked up to hear her speak. That's all for now. In the garden, Misa was playing with the dirt. Beside her was Kendra. Kendra was bewildered. How can this be? She held her head in anguish. Oh my God, it's no different from child. Is the commander crazy? She held out her hand forcefully. My lady, if you don't like it, scratch and bite me. It's all right. Who should I tell this to? Misa frowned, thinking this is so annoying. She continued playing with the dirt while Kendra rambled on. No, but they're husband and wife. Who can stop them? Kendra looked at her. My lady, she hesitated. I always thought my younger sister was the most pitiful person in the world, but now I'm not so sure. She huddled into her arms, hugging her knees. To tell you the truth, I have a younger sister who's like Madam. Though Misa doesn't react, she continued. To be precise, my family has 7 siblings. Though there were 8 at first, people like me usually have a lot of siblings. But one day, a disease broke out in the village, and Tulida faced death, although she was saved with difficulty. At that time, probably because of the high fever, she became like Madam afterward. That's how it was. She looked up at the sky. My father was a blacksmith at the time. Honestly, how could he raise a child like that? Even when she grew up, she couldn't earn a living. She would just point one day, my father took Tilly out. When he returned, he was alone. Her eyes grew sad. Later, I learned Tilly would never come back. I'm still very sad, but I can't say it. Misa sat silently, listening to her. I wonder if there are only 1 or 2 people who haven't experienced this. Misa mistakenly thought, so that's how it is. Family members abandoning each other is common. I learned something new. Gina laughed. Actually, I only talk about this when I'm hugging a horse in the stable or when a dog passes by. Thank you for listening, madam. Misa smiled faintly. I usually hear it's rats or monkeys. This time it's horses and dogs. I don't know why, but my mood isn't bad. Gina looked at her. Madam, she hesitated. Actually, it's the first time I've met someone so clear. Misa, curious, clear. Before she could hear the rest of the sentence, Eric's voice echoed from afar. So you're here. Gina stood up. You've arrived. He said, good work. She asked, disgruntled, why? Why now? He turned to her and said, you can go now. Misa, curious, so? What's clear? Seeing Gina hadn't left, he asked, what is it? Is there anything else you want to say? She bowed. No. See you tomorrow. He walked toward Misa and asked, are you having fun? She just glanced at him, not answering. Then, he tucked her hair behind her ear. She said, Eric, from now on, you don't have to pick me up. He looked at her questioningly. His expression turned serious. What do you mean? He asked, you don't like me coming. She quickly replied, that's not it. She echoed someone else's words. You're busy. Is it okay for me to take up your time like this? He seemed surprised. Even if it does. She looked away. Besides, if I'm with Eric, people won't say anything. But now Gina will carry me to the kitchen. The others are busy. Is it okay for me to take up their time like this? Oh dear, it's all right. Sit down and eat something. Isn't there a growing child? She explained, when I'm with Gina, we usually talk a lot. It's very interesting. Eric seemed disappointed. So that's how it is. Misa looked at him curiously. He doesn't seem very happy, does he? He offered a condition. In return, if you go with Gina, he placed his hand on her shoulder. Now, dress properly, even if you consider changing clothes frequently. He held her arm. I think it's a bit much. Is there any reason they should make you wear such poor quality clothes? She wondered the reason. Eric continued, I want you to be able to wear something nicer. She thought, of course there's a reason. If they knew I was originally someone who was treated poorly, the Grady family wouldn't give me a hard time. According to plan, they'll soon reveal their true nature to me. Not to mention the reason they keep calling me princess is so everyone will resent me. But I don't want to say that to him. She searched for another excuse. Either way, I have to keep doing these strange things. She looked up. Tomorrow, I have to dig under the tree again. Her hand tightened around the branch. I don't want to ruin a nice dress doing that. She felt uneasy. Lately, he's been unnecessarily controlling. It's just that I want to avoid saying anything that might provoke him. The him she referred to as Emperor Vermont. He took her dirt-stained hand. All right, then I'll have them made with softer fabric. And from now on, bring a trowel. Don't dig with your hands. She thought, he always respects and never stops my actions. Eric smiled. He stroked her cheek. It seems you've gotten a bit of a tan after playing in the sun. It's good. You look much healthier. Her cheeks flushed. It was the first time someone had noticed the change in her. Eric withdrew his hand. The first time I met you, I was worried because you were so pale and thin. Now you look like a mischievous woman. Eric walked outside and smelled the grass. A peaceful day like this. I hope it never goes away. Eric gestured. The gardener is coming. The gardener spoke. Ah, commande, madam. Misa quickly pretended to be engrossed in digging. He turned and asked, are the nests being checked daily? The gardener replied, yes, sir. I'm keeping a close eye on the trees here to make sure they don't become overgrown. You needn't worry, as you'll see immediately if any birds build a nest. He replied, thank you for your hard work. Misa wondered if it was because this man was the one who had given her a new life. The gardener bowed. He turned and left. She was still lost in thought. The things he says often strike me as odd. After the gardener left, Misa whispered, Eric, that man, you grimace every time you dig. It seems you don't like it. She realized her words sometimes sounded childish. Eric bent down and called her name, Misa. He explained, digging deep under a tree like this, no gardener in the world would like it. There are times when I get a definite answer. She looked up as he spoke. But if he were to speak rudely to you, that would be a different story. I don't feel hurt by his words. Eric told her, then of course I would punish him. She exclaimed, it's more like he stepped right out of fairy tale. I even think of him as a king, benevolent, just, and even wise. Eric stood up and offered her his hand. It's hot, so let's go back inside. That night, the two sat on the bed, embracing. Misa nuzzled her face against his neck. Tell me more, she murmured. Nestled against him, she asked, which of the things I do for you do you like more? She closed her eyes. Today, this man is still doing strange and unnecessary things as usual. He just needs to be moderate and listen what I want. Misa grabbed his shoulders. Eric, you said it's better to hold me and move. Misa thought it's not enough to just talk and answer. He keeps doing unnecessary things. He asked what's wrong. She grimaced. This is something we're both doing to try and save a life. She wondered, why is he so out of breath? Why am I the only one being bullied? Eric suddenly pushed her away. He said they should wait, so she should take her time answering. This only frustrated her more. If she didn't answer correctly, he wouldn't touch her. She pouted, thinking it was incredibly dirty and despicable. Then, hesitantly, she answered, if you put all your weight on your feet and walk for a long time, you'll get cramps. That's why I like it when you carry me. Eric smiled, satisfied. Just say anything, he thought. Why be so stingy? She remembered Malika's harsh words. Even seeing your naked body doesn't arouse me. Well, of course, she thought. Who would want to be seen like that? She wondered inwardly, does it even matter, even in a life or death situation? Unless, could it possibly change his feelings? Her face flushed. Are we lovers? She asked. Eric looked bewildered. Huh. She continued. Men and women have relationships, especially lovers. Eric and I, we have a special relationship, right? He replied, no, we're husband and wife, not lovers. She asked innocently, so, can married couples also be paired with other people? He countered, have the maids been telling you strange things again? He slowly explained, there are cases where married people have special relationships with others. But not us. I can't have any special woman other than you. And I expect you won't have any other lover besides me. He frowned. I can't understand this at all. Not maintaining chastity shouldn't matter. He recalled Countess Clatney's words. Isn't it fundamentally an act of betraying trust? Suddenly, he embraced her tightly, making her wonder, Eric. He caressed her lips. Also, how are your Gina song lyrics coming along lately? She glanced away. I guess so. She asked, is it strange? He smiled without answering. He kissed her again. So cute. Misa thought, I just need to get through the wedding night, right? Is there something like this during the relations the Count was talking about? But again and again, these unnecessary actions. Eric kissed her shoulder, throwing her into confusion. It was chaotic, stirring up incomprehensible feelings. The next morning, the maid sweetly said, Madam, please sit still for a moment. Gina poked her head in and asked the camisole. The maid replied, yes, we made it ourselves. Gina nibbled on the camisole's strap. Madam looks like a fairy, she exclaimed cheerfully. The maid giggled. Right? It suits her so well. Oh no, don't buy it, Gina. Eden looked in from outside. Her expression turned strange. Earlier, when asked her opinion, she had hesitated. She frowned. I don't think it's unconditional loyalty to the head of the household. Speaking up when things are going wrong is also important. Seeing her beating around the bush, Eric said, just say what you want. She pursed her lips. So, her hands clenched her skirt. At this rate, anyone could become a mistress. I'm wondering if I should stop caring about Madam. He asked, Mistress, what kind of loyalty is it to tell me to sleep with another woman? The Count is still standing guard outside. She said, Commander, to be honest, I don't understand. The knight's duties were given to Amberich, and you continue to spend your time with Madam. She lowered her head. Why do you share your affections with someone who doesn't understand anything like that? Why do you give opportunity to someone who covets the position of successor? You're only focused on making changes. Two lazy maids all day. What's the meaning of this? Eden questioned, while Eric remained silent. Are you neglecting the care of the young missus? She was so uncomfortable yesterday that she resorted to digging in the dirt. Eden scoffed, right? The master is completely smitten with that woman from the tavern. He's only concerned with changing the maids. It's absurd. She spoke frankly. Now, in this situation, it's truly unsettling. He remained silent for a moment, then spoke firmly. Didn't you say it yourself? It seems there's more to the maid Malika. He looked at the Count, and there's a lot I've neglected because I've been spending time with my wife besides training the knights. The Count immediately denied this. That's not the case. Rather, I've recently been resolving the food supply issue for the territory. I handed over all the collected scrap metal to Marquis Haytap. He was very grateful and provided enough food for several years in the Haytap territory, a place with extensive plains and developed agriculture. Anyway, besides the Halix iron mine, there are two more. The territory's smithy doesn't have enough manpower to repair weapons. And ever since Amberich took charge of knight training, the knight's morale has significantly decreased. After being trained by him, they compare him to the former commander even more, to the point that the knights gathered and discussed it. After the Count finished, Eric spoke. All right, if you have any other concerns, let me know. Eden bowed her head, listening to his instructions. You hold a very important role now. You mustn't waver. It's not that. You've considered everything, she said, reproaching herself. I've gone too far. You, who always prioritize based on rational judgment, at this crucial time with the upcoming succession, have neglected knight training and spent day and night with that woman. The one hindering the young commander's judgment is none other than that foolish woman. Gina returned. The head maid has arrived, she smiled. But Eden was thinking, it's not just the young commander. A maid spoke. Head maid, look at the young missus. Isn't she adorable? Eden only forced a smile. And the madam, too. She recalled Madame Telly's appearance. So beautiful. I thought I was treating that woman with compassion, but when the Countess loses control and gets angry. If you're here to supervise, then supervise. You can't even do that. Only occasionally rational when mentioning that woman, like Rossi. Misa suddenly burst out laughing, making Gina flustered. Oh my, young missus. Eden stood frozen outside. What should I do? She frowned. The young commander and Madam are definitely not thinking clearly because of that woman. At the dining table, Eric spilled water. Misa ate noodles with her hands. She called to Eric. He turned to her, and she hesitantly said, I want to go outside. Eric was confused. If it's outside. I heard in the book Gina was reading, she said. I heard there are many people living by the roadside. He asked, do you want to go to the slums? The shops are just buildings connected without gardens. All the shops are like that. He lowered his head in thought. Misa looked at him with sparkling eyes. Can't we? I want to go. Eric's heart pounded, and he could only give in. So, Lady Malika asked, you'll take the carriage for a tour of the inner city? He replied, yes, we'll take a short trip and return. She hesitated. Misa will be very worried when she wakes up. She might think she's being taken somewhere unknown. He reassured her, I'll be with her, so it'll be all right. No, she persisted, still uneasy even so. Then take Gina along. 2 people are better than 1 for looking after her. He declined, it's really not necessary. She maintained her position. Even so, it might be better to bring her. He looked at her silently, then said, I see. He called out, Gina, let's go. In the slums, a carriage moved slowly. Gina asked, 3 hours, is that right? He stroked Misa's hair as she slept on his lap. Yes, go out and come back here at precisely that time. She stared at him. I'm glad to have some time off. He questioned, is there anything else? She replied, no, I'll be back on time. She left. See you later then. Her eyes held a worried look. Will it be all right? Eric drew the carriage curtains closed. He leaned close to her ear and whispered, Misa, you can wake up now. She sat up abruptly and looked outside. Her eyes lit up. Wow, amazing. Eric explained, this is the busiest street. There are a lot of people, just like Gina said. He spoke softly. That white building you see on the hill is the Deseon Temple, where we held our wedding ceremony. Do you remember? She answered, no, not really. I was on a sedative then. He said, disappointed, I see. He thought to himself, until now, she's never been outside with me while fully conscious. For me, it's just familiar. He put his hand on her waist. Just look around comfortably. For Misa, it seems to be a shocking and surprising sight. I wonder what the world reflected in her eyes looks like now. I want to ask her what she thinks, but it's better not to disturb her right now. Misa asked, what's that place over there? Over there. I hope today will become a beautiful memory. I hope she cherishes it for a long time. Misa's eyes widened. She'd been curious for a while. She pointed towards a stall. What's that? He replied, that's a vendor's stall on a cart. They usually sell lower quality goods. She wondered, lower quality. If Clatney considers it lower quality, can still be used. This time, it was his turn to be bewildered. Huh, Eric answered because the young men are out hunting and farming. Misa listened attentively as he spoke. After 12 years, they return all at once. It's very difficult to quickly prepare enough food to feed the 17,000 people in the territory. During this time, Misa had developed a serious misunderstanding. She often climbs onto my lap and secretly looks at various documents. And after thinking things over in that little head of hers, Misa came to the conclusion that Clatney's situation isn't very good. Sometimes she asks about simple words. It's hard to imagine her intently reading complex documents. But anyway, all her standards are based on the royal palace. From her perspective, the food issue is easily misunderstood. He patiently explained, due to the war, trading caravans have reduced their operations, which has also significantly decreased tax revenue. Although there was a temporary shortage in reserves, that issue has been resolved. Currently, everyone is continuing their livelihood. So after this harvest, there won't be any more problems. Misa looked bewildered. It seems she has a serious misunderstanding. He wondered, or does she feel like something is missing? He continued, and there's more. My parents simply dislike extravagance, so we don't have luxurious items in the house. The territory has only recently acquired 3 more observation towers. Closing his eyes, he went on, and we still conduct trade through the northern seaport. Not only that, but the fur of the blue fox, found only in the border region, is also one of our main sources of income. His eyes suddenly widened as he realized he'd spoken too much. Forget what I just said, he urged. The more I talk, the worse it gets. Misa asked, why are you holding your head? It feels like you're showing off your wealth to impress your lover. Isn't that right? He cleared his throat. No, I've unintentionally made you worry. Is that why you feel uncomfortable staying in the mansion? She clutched his coat. Uncomfortable. Misa said, no, I don't feel uncomfortable at all. I just thought there was still a shortage of food, so I saved some snacks. She seemed regretful. If I'd known, I would have eaten my fill. He was taken aback. Good heavens. He got out and instructed the coachman, wait here by the carriage door. The coachman replied, yes, sir. He emphasized, absolutely do not open the door. The coachman responded, of course, sir. Don't worry. Then Eric left. Inside, Misa sat silently, seemingly lost in thought. Earlier, Eric had said, there's a pastry shop near the intersection. I'll pick up a few things you might like. In the meantime, please stay in the carriage. She thought to herself, so his family isn't poor. Misa gasped softly, narrowing her eyes. Oh me, she chuckled to herself. I'm just overthinking things. Actually, the place I used to live was the small Celia Palace. The Central Palace is just a collection of forced memories. Yet my standards are incredibly high. Despite being treated worse than an animal, I still harbor a bit of pride in my royal status. Otherwise, I'd forever feel like I have nothing. She parted the curtain and watched Eric's retreating figure. But the peaceful life I longed for could only be found after I was no longer royalty. The marriage I once feared has brought me such tranquility. From outside, there was a commotion. Is that I asked that right? A loud voice startled her. The Grady family crest. She gripped the curtain tightly. What am I thinking? Misa thought fearfully. The girls outside chattered. Ah, he's already gone inside the shop. I didn't even get a good look. Another girl chimed in. He's so tall. It's the first time I've seen him this close. Misa wondered, are they talking about him? Two other girls spoke. I heard this is his first time appearing in the capital, right? The first time since he became an adult. With his looks, it's unbelievable there haven't been any rumors until now. Misa's face registered surprise. Their gossip echoed in her mind. You don't know. I heard Maria's older sister married into the Count's family. They only saw him on the wedding day. But the Grady heir is completely different from the other famously handsome noble sons. He's striking. The gossip about Eric's appearance took on a new meaning for Misa. Do they mean he's so handsome it causes a stir? The two girls giggled. In short, he's incomparably handsome. That's so handsome. She peeked outside. They really like him, don't they? The girls added. And I heard father say that if he hadn't turned the tide at the last minute, we probably would have lost that battle. That's right. If it weren't for him, our homeland would have been engulfed in flames. Just thinking about it gives me goosebumps. Misa finally realized, so he was the key to victory. Now I understand why everyone is cheering so enthusiastically for him. The emotion overflowing on their faces. It's off. The conversation shifted. Suddenly, a girl gasped, "Is that true?" A woman whispered, "Should be quiet. If you speak out of turn, you could be arrested for disrespect." "It's something I overheard," she added. Misa listened silently. That's why even the national wedding was so heavily guarded that no one could see anything. So they held the national wedding without knowing his condition. Oh my goodness, what's going on? Misa's eyes widened in horror. Eric finally returned, and they sighed again. We have no reason to pity the heir to such a powerful family. Let's get closer and see his face clearly. The moment he stepped out, something caught my attention. But amidst the cheering crowd, two melancholic faces appeared. Ironically, those expressions felt familiar, because the Eric I know always receives such looks. It felt like something invisible had just hit her. Eric's voice broke through. "Have you been waiting long?" "You suddenly drew a crowd, so I was worried," Misa replied, her expression unreadable. "Yes, he's used to being greeted like this." Eric sat down next to her. "I picked out a lot of things so the box got bigger." She remained silent. Now, because of me, he has to endure those looks. I don't want to admit it, but while this marriage is a blessing for me, is it a tragedy for him? She ignored Eric's question. What should we eat? Her hand clutched her skirt. I feel so sorry for him, and so guilty that it's all my fault. She pursed her lips. But if I feel guilty for ruining his life, what about me? The one who's been treated like dirt all this time. She lowered her head. Who should really feel guilty? Eric opened the pastry box. "I bought this because the bakery recommended it. It's from the South. They eat it with salted cream." Misa asked, "Is it from Hallida?" Her face paled. He replied, "I think so." She turned away. "I don't like it." "Eric, don't open the box. I don't like sweets." She didn't understand herself. Eric remained silent. Guilt gnawed at her. She'd made his life a tragedy, and now she was scorning his gesture. Surely, he would be angry. "He's handsome," she thought. Eric gently asked, "Did something happen while I was gone?" He repeated, "What's wrong?" She turned back to him, his eyes seeming to see everything. She frowned. "I told you, I don't like sweets." Eric lifted her chin. "You have to be clear. Whether you like it or not isn't important. What matters is that your attitude has completely changed since earlier." She stared at him, bewildered. Eric repeated, "I asked, did something happen while I was away?" Fear flickered in her eyes. Eric continued to ask, even though they hadn't known each other long. "But you take things to heart more than I thought." Misa gasped, stopping in her tracks. He seemed unaware of her distress and continued, "In most cases, you're not picky, and you don't act impulsively without reason." While he spoke, Misa's hands clenched. "I'd rather he just yelled at me and ignored me." He asked, "If there's something you hate so much that you don't want to see it, there must be a reason." Misa wondered, why does he keep caring about me and trying to understand? Her face was pale. Her breathing became labored, causing Eric concern. "Misa," he said anxiously. She clutched at her clothes as he called her name again. Misa. Misa. Suddenly, she collapsed. Eric cried out in alarm. Misa. The slum district remained bustling around them. Eric held Misa in his arms inside the carriage. Misa wondered, what should I do? He's holding me tight. I just fainted. Finally, she calmed down. What have I done? Even if we're both holding on to each other's secrets tightly, isn't he the only one who knows my secret? I even have to receive help from him in a situation where he keeps acting like I'm a child. Anyway, I've become too used to being treated like a human being lately. Don't waste my emotions or pride needlessly. She bit her lip. I'm so stupid. I definitely have to get along with him. She peeked at him. So, after I get home, I definitely have to smile brightly at whatever he says. Then somehow, she stiffened when she caught Eric staring at her. Misa fearfully lowered her head. Oh, I'm so startled. She reassured herself. It's okay. Compared to that, his usual expression is a bit gloomy anyway. Her hand trembled. Anyway, it seems like his expression is always gentle with me. Gara, open the curtain. I'm home. Misa looked up. Gara was bewildered when she saw their state. She tiptoed inside. It's so dark. Are these two children of the night? She asked, why are all the curtains closed? Eric looked outside, a puzzled expression on his face. Eric returned to the Count's mansion, sitting in his carriage. The timely return of Eric's carriage caught the Count's attention. Eric silently watched him, wondering, he's leaving again today. Eric sighed. I'll get off first. Eden's voice echoed in his mind. I don't think unconditional obedience to the head of the family is loyalty. He wondered why. He stepped out of the carriage, watching the Count's carriage depart. He stood silently. I wonder why those words keep coming to mind. The Count's carriage drove away, leaving only a trail of smoke. Eric thought, I didn't even get to greet him. Sometimes I feel like those words are weighing heavily on my shoulders. Everything done for the family must be carried out reasonably and properly. Doubt arose within him. But his father truly fulfilling his role as the head of the family? There's definitely some truth in what Eden said. His lips parted slightly, murmuring something. It will take time to remove the rotten parts. A voice called from behind him, Commander. Gina carried Misa, saying, there's a box of fine pastries in the carriage. I'll get them for you. Eric replied, you can eat them. Bring them to the lady. Gina, surprised, said, oh, really? Yes, he added. And do you know how to use a dagger or something? She looked bewildered. A dagger. She thought. It seems I should answer that I don't know how to use one. But that thought was immediately dismissed. It's best I don't lie to the commander. She replied, yes, I can cut things. He turned away. Good. Gina wondered what. From above, a shadowy figure silently observed. Malika muttered, how strange. She said to DL, looking at them like that, they must not be lovers, right? DL disagreed. Why not? Malika continued, perhaps this type of girl is his preference. Otherwise, why would he bring his escort along? Look, he even gave her a secret gift, without letting anyone know. Malika pondered. What is that glance she gave? It seems she has some wicked plan. I don't care. If they aren't lovers, then they'll become lovers. The scene changed to Eric sitting beside Misa, who was lying in bed. She appeared to be sleeping. Eric watched her silently, seemingly lost in thought. He reached out to Misa. Before Eric could touch her, she startled, causing him to freeze. Oh, he patted her head. I'm sorry. You really fell asleep this time. He withdrew his hand. Don't worry. Go back to sleep. I'll prepare dinner. Misa's eyes widened in surprise. She took his hand. Eric, she asked anxiously, are you angry with me? He replied, huh. Misa placed his hand on her cheek. Because you like hearing stories about me the most. Misa tried to sound cheerful. Actually, oh my, so you're from Southern Heliadi. His face remained expressionless as he listened. So I'm sorry, she said. The third queen was the last queen of the former king. Not long ago, I tried to learn more, but everyone gave different information. So, she was from Heliadi. Misa was surprised. Unlike the other queens, she was a woman from a terrible family. Unfortunately, the king died not long after the queen gave birth to their first child. Misa, in just a moment, became a deprived child. People said she lived in Celia Palace like a rat, carrying newborn Misa. It was as if she existed, and yet didn't. When Voman grew up, he annihilated his foreign relatives, the Salachis, until the royal blood stained the palace. As a result, there isn't much accurate information about the last queen. He asked, so you hate everything from that region? Misa answered curtly. He sighed. Anyway, I've done something pointless. So please tell me every story, one by one. What you like, what you hate. He spoke to her gently. Sharing these things with me will make you feel better. I'll also avoid making mistakes I'm unaware of. She replied, yes, I understand. He continued, anyway, I thank you. It's good that you can honestly tell me everything. His gaze rested on her, recalling her expression. He asked, besides that, there's something else, right? She was surprised by his words. Why did you suddenly get angry with me?